Governor Chris Christie, who once worked for Trump, running for president, offered last night on CNN what I think is probably the closest explanation of a motive.
And he wants to continue to pretend he's president. He wants the trappings of the presidency around him. And I think one of those trappings is these documents.
He's making it sound like it's his baseball card collection. Hey, look what I have. Isn't this exciting? I don't know if that explains the motive of having hundreds and hundreds of documents stored all over his place. I'm sure he didn't even know where they were being stored. There's so many different locations.
Countdown to...
In 30 minutes, we're going to talk about security at that federal courthouse in Miami as the president arrives in just a couple of hours, even less than that. The chief of police assuring the public the police department is ready for protests that potentially could go beyond the exercise of First Amendment rights. But I think he also has quite a math problem on his hands. I noticed something during his news conference. There's a huge gap as to how many are predicted to show up. So let's hope his expectations of what happens there today are spot on.
Even though we're preparing, we're bringing enough resources to handle crowd anywhere from 5,000 to 50,000. We don't expect any issues, right? So we appreciate the public's help.
Doesn't expect any issues.
Okay, you can not expect issues, but I am seeing on News Nation right now that they reported that these groups that started gathering around the courthouse have been moved back. They've already started moving them away from the courthouse.
Launch countdown 1.
Former President Trump, as we've been reporting all weekend long, yesterday and today, expected to appear in a Miami court in just a bit after a federal indictment on withholding and keeping classified materials. Here's what he said about it.
As far as the joke of an indictment, it's a horrible thing. It's a horrible thing for this country. I mean, the only good thing about it is it's driven my poll numbers way up. Can you believe this? Way up.
This was the former president at the Republican convention in Georgia. This was shortly after the indictment was handed down, and oddly enough, he was pretty lighthearted about it. He was having a lot of fun with it.
They're lawless, partisan prosecutors, the prosecutors. Every time I fly over a blue state, I get a subpoena. We want him before the grand jury.
Dave and Dujanovic.
The launch.
Commence.
Presidential indictment. In-depth coverage on KSL News Radio.
Well, here's the news headline from Fox. Nearly half the country supports Trump's federal indictment, but still believes that politics are involved.
Because they want to use something called the Espionage Act. Doesn't that sound terrible? Oh, espionage. We got a box. I got a box. The Espionage. The Espionage Act of 1917. I think it was put in there about World War I boxes.
Yeah, that was ABC News in Ipsos. They conducted that. And I can say, Deb, I'm very surprised whenever we see these numbers and they start saying half the country feels this about Trump, then half the country feels the other way about Trump. Well, isn't that basically how the voting goes? Half supported Trump, half did not support Trump. So you can see a very straight line cut down between the nation that think, oh, yeah, this is totally, totally fine. The interesting element to this is that folks are recognizing, or they believe, that politics were involved. And politics should never be involved when we're talking about the rule of law. That should be separate. We should not make it political. That's where it starts getting dangerous.
At today's arraignment, it will be rather short. Usually a defendant will enter a not guilty plea. But down the road, what are the possibilities for his defenses? If I'm President Trump's defense attorney, I would start to comb through the Presidential Records Act to see if he had any sort of a right to take these home with him. And he joked about how these boxes, just a few days ago, he joked about how these boxes were transferred from the White House to Mar-a-Lago. Let's listen.
When I left office and was moving to Florida, boxes were openly sitting on the White House sidewalk. Everybody was taking pictures of them. This isn't somebody smuggling boxes out. Pictures of them, you've all seen it, sitting with people from GSA and other people waiting to put them on a truck. But they were literally sitting outside of the White House waiting for a truck to come. Then the truck come. It was there for a long time, and they put it in, and they brought it down to Florida, and they make it sound like it's a big, if that's a spy operation or if that's something bad, we did a very poor job, I will tell you. First thing you learn is don't put them on the sidewalk in front of the White House. As a former president, we were negotiating with the National Archives and Records Administration, just as every other president has done. And the next thing I knew, Mar-a-Lago was raided by gun-toting FBI agents.
He doesn't see anything wrong with having the boxes. He thought he had the right, according to him. He packed them up for everyone to see. He's like, we moved them all down there. So I don't know if he's saying, I didn't know what was in them when they just packed up all the boxes and sent them down to my house, or if I totally had the right to have these as a former president. But you can definitely see he's dismissive of the idea that he had smuggled them, or he was hoarding them, or he was trying to conceal them. He's like, oh, they were just sitting out on the White House lawn.
And if I'm Trump's defense attorney, Dave, I would tell him, stop talking. Stop admitting that you took boxes that you're accused of taking full of classified documents and toting them publicly through, from the White House down to Mar-a-Lago. Stop talking. Boy, his defense attorney, whoever that person ends up being for this case, has a heavy lift.
Yeah, the retainer is not enough for that guy.
He's also tried to flip the script many times, and this has been fact-checked by multiple news organizations as being false. He tries to flip the script on the 1,850 boxes that President Biden has at the University of Delaware.
By the way, Biden's got 1,850 boxes. He's got boxes in Chinatown, D.C. He's got boxes all over the place. He doesn't know what the hell to do with them. And he's fighting them on the boxes. He doesn't want to give the boxes. And then they say, Trump is obstructioning. He's obstructing. No, it's a sad...
Yeah, and we do know that President Biden has documents. I've never heard the 1,800. I have no idea what number he's talking about, but we do know that President Biden has had several. He had classified documents at a think tank. He had some in his garage next to his Corvette, but his garage was locked, so everything was fine. But again, it's that redirect. This is, well, don't look at me. Look at what this guy did. Though I do want to know what President Biden was doing with the boxes as well, and what he was doing with classified documents.
In his garage? Is that what you're talking about?
Next to his Corvette, yeah.
Because the 1,850 documents that Trump continues to reference actually have been fact-checked by multiple media outlets, and the Associated Press, the National Archives, says those boxes are referenced are actually President Biden's Senate papers, which are housed at the University of Delaware and can legally be housed at the University of Delaware. So, fact check on that. However, flipping the script may be part of his defense. I'll tell you what is not in the indictment is a motive. So let's ask KSL legal analyst Greg Skordas. Are the prosecutors dropping the ball in this indictment already by not even mentioning what his motive might be? Maybe they don't have to.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Hey, stay right here for more of Dave and Dujanovic.
And tomorrow morning, come back here for news, traffic updates, and reliable weather.
Join us to have a listen. Tim and Amanda.
Your morning companions for news.
Last summer was killer.
We had 34 days of 100-degree temperatures.
And this year?
We're not going to have a summer like 2022. That is such an anomaly. To repeat that twice, it's unheard of.
Get a reliable forecast as temperatures rise and storms move in. Listen for traffic and weather together every 10 minutes on the 9s. It's on. Mornings and afternoons on KSL News Radio. Your all-summer companion for news.
I guess it's human nature, Amanda, that no matter how much money we have in our savings account, it never seems like it's enough. And if you find yourself in that mode right now, let us direct you over to our friends at UCCU. They are wanting to help you supercharge your savings.
UCCU is offering high-rate savings options with yields up to 5.5%. All you do is go to UCCU.com and select a high-rate savings option to do just what you said, supercharge your savings.
You're going to get a much bigger return on your savings right now. It's a savings certificate, which means you make one deposit up front and your money grows over a fixed period of time. So you can have that grow over 5 years, but UCCU has created some very short-term savings certificates with high yields, short like 6 months, 9 months, or a year.
So you decide how long do you want to put that money. You deposit money, a one-time only deposit, and then you let it stay in it. The longer it stays in there, the higher the interest rate you earn.
And if you need immediate access to your money, UCCU's Money Market will give you a high yield and anytime access.
UCCU, you're going to love where you bank.
If you came across someone struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them? Would you notice a 16-year-old boy who got his first job?
Not for extra spending money, but to help feed his little sisters?
Or a mother who's in between jobs and sometimes goes to bed hungry so her kids can have dinner? I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. I am hungered in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Here's a message just for the attorneys out there. So you passed the bar, joined a firm, or even built your own. Now are you finding out that you're doing more administration than actual law practice? Lexicon can help. Lexicon is a legal technology provider with over a decade of experience streamlining administrative tasks like timekeeping, billing, and more, so you can focus on maximizing billable hours and increasing client satisfaction. Call 855-4-LEXICON or visit lexiconservices.com/go to learn more.
Hi, this is Dan, the laptop man from PC Laptops. Are you suffering from excruciating headaches, anxiety, and insomnia? You may be suffering from CMS, crappy monitor syndrome. That old computer screen from years ago could be the problem, exposing you to massive amounts of radiation frying your brain. At PC Laptops, we only carry screens that we've tested on our own eyeballs. Right now, purchase any PC Laptops desktop with an external monitor and get a free size upgrade. That's right. For example, if you buy a 22-inch monitor, you get an upgrade to 24 inches for no extra charge. Buy a 24, get an upgrade to a 27-inch monitor for free. We have brand new PC Laptops desktop computers starting from $11.99 or $29 a month, backed by a lifetime warranty. And to make it extra sweet, we're doing 0 interest for a year on approved credit. So run into any one of our PC Laptops locations right now or check us out at PCLaptops.com. That's PCLaptops.com. Because at PC Laptops, we love you.
The biggest RV show in the region is growing. The Utah Summer RV Palooza is back and bringing the heat to Sandy, June 22nd through the 24th. For 3 days only, the shops at Southtown will be packed with the largest selection of new and used RVs in the region. Shop brands like Ember, Forest River, Northwood, and more. You'll even find the hard-to-get Go Play 26BH bunkhouse travel trailer at a sales price of only $19,995. But that's not all the summer savings we're serving up. Save up to 20% below cost on select new 2022 RVs. Yeah, up to 20% under cost. We're also offering 90 days no payments on approved credit for all play and no pay until September. Plus, right now, we'll trade anything. Bring your trade to the show and we'll hook you up. Don't miss your chance to enter to win a brand new $30,000 RV. No purchase necessary. See rules for details. All during the Utah Summer RV Palooza in Sandy. Only June 22nd through the 24th at the shops at Southtown. Sponsored by Vicious RV.
Advanced Window Products. Affordable windows from their factory to your front door in 8 weeks. Guaranteed. 801-850-9100 or advancedwindowsusa.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Tim Hughes. First, a 17-year-old teenager is pleading guilty to murdering his girlfriend in Paiute County in January. Second, a Trump-appointed judge.
President Biden due in a Miami courthouse in about an hour and a half from now. He's actually showing up quite early for his arraignment. Now, the indictment itself, even though it is dozens of pages long, I noticed, and you probably noticed it too, Dave, it doesn't spell out a motive of why, and he admitted it. We just played the audio where he admits he took these boxes from the White House to Mar-a-Lago just the other day. But it doesn't spell out a motive. Watching CNN's town hall last night with the GOP presidential candidate, Governor Chris Christie, who once worked for President Trump, here's a taste of what he said. I think it's the closest thing we're going to get to a motive, at least today.
This is vanity run amok, Anderson. Run amok. Ego run amok. And he is now going to put this country through this when we didn't have to go through it.
Vanity is an interesting argument because, listen, this is the gold toilet guy, right? Trump is about vanity. He loves the shiny things. That's part of his panache. So was this just an ego trip for him to be able to have all of these documents and say, hey, look, I'm still in the know? Well, when you're no longer president, you might be in the know a little bit, obviously, but you're not in the know. You're not getting those daily presidential briefings that tell you every insight of what's going on around the world.
I'm not sure prosecutors really need to spell out at this stage what the motive was, because they don't say in these documents that he'd planned on taking these classified secrets home with him, secrets such as our nuclear weaponry capabilities, plans regarding other countries and their defense mechanisms. It's not like they allege he went off and sold them or he put them on a website for everybody to see. But Governor Christie continued on that thought of vanity. And here's where I thought, it could be this. Here's what he told Anderson Cooper last night on CNN.
You know him very well.
Yes.
Why do you think he did it? I mean,
he cannot live with the fact that he lost to Joe Biden. He can't live with it. And look, I watched the way Joe Biden's performing. I'd be pretty bummed out too if I'd lost to Joe Biden. But the fact is he did. And he wants to continue to pretend he's president. He wants the trappings of the presidency around him. And I think one of those trappings is these documents.
You kind of get some of this, right? When you are a one-term president, there's no question you feel like there was work left for you to do, which is why he's running again. But if you're a two-term president, you know you're done. Like you've been to the top of the mountain. There's nowhere to go but down. And I think there's maybe some closure there. I can see where you would want to hang on to some of that power. I can see where that would be intoxicating.
It's like these documents were his security blanket, his whoopee, his pacifier. Here's one of the text messages that's laid out in the indictment between employees at Mar-a-Lago, captured in the indictment. One employee asks another employee in a text to move the boxes, and the other employee types back, whoa, okay, POTUS, meaning President of the United States, specifically asked for those boxes to be in the business center because they are his papers. His papers. And then one of the employees suggests there's room in the shower, and is it only his papers he cares about? Greg Skordas, could the motive be simply that he wanted to take his binky home with him, and this is his pacifier? Are these classified documents?
Yeah, I think there's actually a more clear motive, and motive isn't necessarily an element of a crime. You can prosecute individuals in America without establishing motive. Jurors like to hear motive; they like to know, but there is a motive spelled out in the indictment, where Trump is saying to a reporter, and I'm looking at page 15 of the indictment, that these documents clear me. He says, in fact, this totally wins my case. And what he's saying is that apparently he was being accused of trying to start a war with another country. I can only surmise it's Iraq. And he's got some documents where military officials are talking about engaging in a conflict with another country. And he's saying, look, I've been blamed for this, but it wasn't me. It was my military leaders. This clears my name. And that's I think that's motive, at least as it relates to some of the documents here.
Greg, when it comes to motive, why is that so important for a jury? Is it to connect the dots?
Yeah, I mean, I think jurors always want to know why. It's not important. Like the Richens case, the motive is financial, or the Vallow case, the motive was, sex, power, and money. And they're not part of the crime. They're not in the criminal code. You don't have to prove motive. But jurors always want to hear it. They always want to know, why did somebody do this? And prosecutors are often forced with having to show motive, because it's just something that I think the jurors want to hear, even though it's not a required element to prove.
Besides Governor Chris Christie giving this take last night at the town hall.
You know him very well.
Yes.
Why do you think he did it? I mean,
he cannot live with the fact that he lost to Joe Biden. He can't live with it. And look, I watched the way Joe Biden's performing. I'd be pretty bummed out too if I'd lost to Joe Biden. But the fact is, he did. And he wants to continue to pretend he's president. He wants the trappings of the presidency around him. And I think one of those trappings is these documents.
He says that, and then he goes on to say, Greg, that this indictment is just the tip of the iceberg, that as a former prosecutor himself, that he feels like the special counsel in this case will bring much more evidence and a lot of witnesses that we haven't heard yet. What's your take?
Oh, I think that's probably true. I don't put much stock in Chris Christie, by the way, but I do think that's a logical thing to conclude. I mean, we don't ever see the entirety of a government's case in an indictment. It's often rare that we even see a half of it or a third of it. And so you could imagine that this 49-page indictment probably has a fraction of what evidence the government has against the former president, because they don't need to put it all in the indictment. Otherwise, you'd be writing a book. You just need enough to get you to a probable cause determination that a crime was committed and that the individual charged in the indictment committed the crime.
Greg, we expect the president to be arraigned early this morning. What's the timeline look, though? Big picture, start to finish with the jury. How long could this take?
Well, could and will are maybe two different things, but it would be unusual for a case of this magnitude to be tried in the federal court system in America within 2 years. Now, there's an election in November of 2024, which is within 2 years. I think that the Trump lawyers are going to have a hard time getting this tried before then, and I think it behooves him to get it tried before then, because if he's acquitted and he wants to continue to sort of play the martyr role, that would look very good for him. If he could go to trial and be acquitted on this, he'd probably look very good in the eyes of a lot of people who think that he's being persecuted here unreasonably. But I think it's going to be hard to get this case to a jury before November of 2024.
Yeah, that sounds brutal to me. I think you spelled it out perfectly, Greg. Thanks for joining us. KSL legal analyst Greg Skordas. Deb, if this is going on while the election is happening, versus had he been acquitted, if he's guilty, I mean, there's no upside to have this drag on through the election.
In the 10 o'clock hour, we're going to take you live to the courthouse where News Nation is standing by live for us. And next, speaking with a retired FBI special agent who served on the SWAT team about the math problem that the chief of police is dealing with in Miami right now when it comes to people showing up to protest.
Even though we're preparing, we're bringing enough resources to handle crowd anywhere from 5,000 to 50,000, we don't expect any issues, right? So.
KSL News Time now is 9:30. I'm Tim Hughes. Let's look at some of our top stories this half hour. Salt Lake City leaders getting ready to give the final seal of approval on a $444 million budget. Here's KSL News Radio's Kate Davis.
The funding will be channeled to affordable housing initiatives and other programs that will help alleviate homelessness. The budget will go into effect at the start of July and also funds different areas of law enforcement. Also happening in July, a planned utility bill hike of 18% for water and 10% for sewer.
Officials say the utility bill increases will help the city pay for a new water treatment plant to meet federal regulations. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Former President Trump will be in a Miami courtroom around 1 this afternoon our time to be arraigned in the classified documents case. As Dave and Debbie have just been talking about, we'll have live coverage with the help of ABC News. The warning used to be, don't send cash through the mail.
You still shouldn't do that, but you also shouldn't send checks either.
Last year, banks reported at least 680,000 cases of check fraud to the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. That's nearly double the 350,000 reports from a year earlier. Officials say a rise in organized crime has been forcing small businesses and individuals to take more precautions, including not mailing checks at all. If you must, they say you should do it from a secure location, like the inside of a post office, not a mailbox. Sherry Preston, ABC News.
Coming up, if you guessed we might see some more scattered storms today, you'd be right. We'll check your forecast next. KSL News Time, 9:33.
Early mornings can be hard enough, just getting yourself going.
We try to make it a little easier with news and weather from comfortable, trusted anchors and reporters.
Join us on Utah's Morning News between 5 and 9
on KSL News Radio.
Hi, this is Clark Ivory with Ivory Homes. 2023 is turning out to be pretty fantastic. We are consistently selling 20 to 30 homes per week, and we've helped hundreds of families and individuals by buying down their interest rates. Visit an Ivory model home today. You can choose from over 200 home designs and customize your plan just the way you want. Make this a summer to remember. The summer you created your own Ivory home.
It's back, and you will be too. Back for 2023 in their new location, June 15th through the 17th at the Cache County Fairgrounds. It's the Summerfest Arts Fair, featuring local and regional artists and musicians. You are going to love this, like you loved it before. Art, painting, ceramics, music, food. Summerfest Arts Fair is loaded with all the things you and the family love most. Then get set for an amazing lineup of musicians, featuring headliners, the Painted Roses, Latin Roots Salsa, and the Solistics. Enjoy other regional musicians like Highline Drifters and the Fry Pan Band. This is where local, regional, and national artists come together to celebrate the arts. So discover 140 artist booths, 38 performing groups, and 30 food vendors, along with a plein air art competition. Get full details at logansummerfest.org. logansummerfest.org. Summerfest Arts Fair, June 15th through the 17th at the Cache County Fairgrounds. That's the Summerfest Arts Fair, June 15th through the 17th at the Cache County Fairgrounds.
I'm Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I learned about atrial fibrillation the hard way. My symptoms would come and go: shortness of breath, fatigue. I kept going. Then I got so lightheaded, I couldn't. My doctor said I have AFib, so I'm about 5 times more likely to have a stroke. Other symptoms: irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain can come and go, but the risk of stroke stays. If you have symptoms, tell a doctor. Visit notimetowait.com.
Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
Here's a question. Do you wear dentures? At Grandpa's Dental, you can trade in your floppy dentures and get $2,000 towards an implant-supported solution. You know, they say the older you get, the more you need your teeth. Well, chewing your food isn't a luxury. And taking a bite out of a nice, juicy steak, well, it takes teeth. At Grandpa's Dental, they have over 10,000 restorations under their belt, and it's always affordable. When you walk into one of their 3 locations, you're family, period. At Grandpa's Dental, they live their family legacy by building lasting relationships through state-of-the-art services. So if you want to stop the flop and actually eat foods you can chew, trade in your dentures at Grandpa's Dental for $2,000 toward your implant solution. Schedule your free consultation at grandpasdental.com today. That's grandpasdental.com.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's High Yield Savings Certificates. Let's go to Heather Kelly.
Well, we've got a rollover crash northbound I-15 right at the point of the mountain. Right lane and shoulder are blocked. You've got a car on its top over on the right shoulder, and traffic is very slow at a crawl all the way back to 2100 North in Lehigh, so that'll take you extra time to get into the Salt Lake Valley. The good news is the rest of the roadways are traveling at speed. Electrical problems? Want to light up your world? Call the electricians with the online guarantee. Call Mr. Sparky at 888-8-SPARKY. That's 8888-SPARKY. Heather Kelly in the KSL Traffic Center.
70s and scattered storms today, tomorrow, Thursday, and then we jump into the 80s just in time for Father's Day weekend. Each of those days, by the way, has about a 60% chance of showers, so expect that later this afternoon. Right now, mostly cloudy in downtown Salt Lake City and 63 degrees. At KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, your all-day companion for news.
Presidential indictment. In-depth coverage on KSL News Radio.
Just looking at this article on NBC News from reporter Kelly O'Donnell, that federal officials are now expressing concerns that there are not what are considered hardened barriers outside the federal courthouse in Miami. Well, President Trump will be arriving in less than an hour and a half. And in fact, the chief of police, Dave, addressing the media yesterday, I got to tell you, I have some concerns, too, about what I heard from him.
We are working very closely with our federal, state, and local partners to make sure that we have a comprehensive approach, right, that is going to ensure that we maintain not only peace and order, like the mayor said, but that everyone has the right to express themselves and the First Amendment rights.
He said they're ready for, 5,000 people up to 50,000, right?
Let me play this.
Even though we're preparing, we're bringing enough resources to handle crowd anywhere from 5,000 to 50,000. We don't expect.
Now, you mentioned a math problem, Debbie. I'm looking at the City of Miami's website. They have 1,100 sworn members of their police force. So if 50,000 people show up, that's being outnumbered 50-1. Easy math.
Yeah. So these sound like to me
very closely with our federal, state, and local partners to make sure that we have a comprehensive approach.
Talking points.
That is going to ensure that we
those are talking points.
Not only peace and order, like the
don't know who
said,
wrote those up, but those are the
right
talking points that we hear frequently when chiefs of large organizations stand before microphones and try to assure the public that they have all the resources in place that they can draw on just in case. Now, they're not concerned about people who show up and peacefully protest. What they're concerned about is people who cross the line and break the law. Carl Schmay, retired FBI special agent, also served on the SWAT team. I know there were times where there were government officials in high places who visited Utah, and you were involved in the planning and security of that. Not quite the level, though, of a former president being indicted, and he has such a huge fan base that now federal officials are saying, at least to NBC News, that they wished that the Miami Police Department would have put up hardened barriers around the courthouse, not for the protection of the president, believe it or not, but for protection of the public.
Yeah, good morning, Dave. Good morning, Deb. Thanks for having me on again. Those are real concerns, and this is a lot different than what I dealt with when I was on the SWAT team. As you mentioned, Deb, we had high-profile dignitaries come through. Sometimes we do executive protection, but the difference is here we have public officials, in some cases some congressmen, that are making some really inflammatory statements. There was one congressman from Arizona saying that we have reached a war phase, an eye for an eye. He tweeted that out, and that really concerns me because words can radicalize people, as we saw what happened on January 6th.
We heard these same similar concerns when Trump was indicted in New York. The Manhattan folks where they were loading up all the barriers, and then when we actually went there live, we talked to reporters and they said, oh yeah, there's way more media members, there's more press members than protesters. I guess, how much of this is this just the hysteria of the excitement of the moment versus?
Good question, Dave. Look, I think the lesson learned from January 6th is that we can't underestimate what could happen. I mean, we saw a lot of law enforcement officials get hurt on January 6th. Over 1,000 people have been charged in that case so far. And, a lot of those people have since expressed remorse. They said they got swept up in the moment. They listened to the rhetoric and they just got carried away. And so we've seen that, that can happen. And there's certainly been some similar rhetoric about what could happen today. And so I think law enforcement has to be prepared.
Well, law enforcement cannot take the standpoint of let's just wait and see how this goes, and then if things go south, then we'll start calling in resources from far and wide and hope everybody can get through the crowd and show up. So Carl, what if you were in charge of this? What would you like to see in place there that maybe you don't see in place there in Miami right now? And not only for the protection of the crowd, but quite frankly, for the former president himself.
Right. So there's a balance. And the chief hit the nail on the head that people have a right to show up under the Constitution to peacefully assemble and to express their First Amendment rights. So on the one hand, you want people to feel comfortable to come through. I mean, if you had tanks and stuff sitting out there, that would look overly militarized, right? So that's kind of the extreme. You want people to feel comfortable to express their constitutional rights, but we also want the police to have at least enough of a deterrence to keep anybody, from thinking, you know what, I'm going to crash through this barrier. I'm going to be the guy to save the president or whatever. Because all it takes is one knucklehead to go out and, bring a gun, start shooting or whatever, and now you've got a really serious situation.
Is January 6th, the fact that everyone was kind of caught unprepared, is this the pendulum swinging the other way where we are too paranoid?
No, Dave, I don't think so. I think there's definitely lessons learned from January 6th. Clearly, the Capitol Police were not prepared for what happened on January 6th, and a lot of guys got hurt. And I think law enforcement is learning lessons from that.
Carl Schmay, thank you for joining us. Former FBI special agent, was a member of the SWAT team. Thanks for joining us.
We'll keep an eye on things out of Miami. We have live feeds, of course, and our reporters and producers in the newsroom are helping us monitor those feeds. Here's the plan for the day. In the 10 o'clock hour, straight out of the gates at 10 a.m., 10:05, when we rejoin the show after our news coverage, we will take you straight to the courthouse, the federal courthouse, where News Nation has a reporter standing by live to give us a situational update on what's going on there. The president is expected to arrive in an hour and 15 minutes, our time, at 11 o'clock our time, at the courthouse to be processed. We'll be rejoined in the show by our legal analyst, Greg Skordas. He'll walk us through what will be happening behind the scenes. And is that a live feed that we're watching right now, Dave?
Or do you think it's
a recorded feed of the president?
From Monday.
From a couple of days ago. So much more coverage straight ahead.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Did you know Utah has just one all-new station in the morning?
It's this one, weekday mornings between 5 and 9.
Start your days with us. We're Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
Your morning companions for news.
The former president.
3 in 5 Americans view these charges as serious.
Charged for a second time.
Trump has long denied any wrongdoing.
Get all sides of this history-making story. The arraignment of former President Donald Trump. Mornings and afternoons all week on KSL News Radio. Your all-day companion for news.
I love the summer. My family loves the summer. We spend a lot of time outside. And when you spend a lot of time outside, whether it's sunburns or just getting dirty playing outside, there's a lot of things where I use my soft water. Now, if you're wondering, well, what in the world is soft water? Well, Utah has some of the hardest water in the entire country. So what hard water does is that it beats up. You probably see the hard water stains all the time when you're doing your dishes. It leaves those hard water spots all over your faucets, the corrosion. It's hard on your skin. That's one of the biggest reasons we decided to get a Kinetico water softener, is because we really have a lot of dry skin in our family and just sick of bathing constantly in lotion. Soft water has made a huge difference to keep our skin soft and hydrated. If you're interested in getting soft water into your house and learning how easy it is and how beneficial it is to your family, give Kinetico of Utah a call, 801-576-8600. That's 801-576-8600, or check them out online at softwaterutah.com.
Premium checking from America First Credit Union is so much more than a regular checking account. It's a saves you money, makes life easier, always has your back account, because it's absolutely loaded with fantastic benefits and features. In fact, it comes stocked with so much awesome stuff. It was voted Best Perks by Money.com. So make sure you're rocking more than a checking account. Head to America First and apply for the exclusive protection, perks, and paybacks of premium checking today. Subject to membership eligibility and conditions. Federally insured by NCUA. Since 1939, America First has been helping people pursue their financial goals. And as we have, we've become one of the largest credit unions in the country. The reason why is simple. It's because every day we do our very best to help each person, family, and business we serve to realize their individual dreams and achieve financial well-being. True to our name, we always strive to put our members and employees first. So come join us and let us put you first. America First Credit Union. Federally insured by NCUA.
Hey, if you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, it's time to change the game. It's all about changing the conversation. I did that 18 months ago with SOTA Weight Loss. SOTA stands for state-of-the-art weight loss because it is state-of-the-art. I lost 37 pounds in less than 90 days, and here I am a year and a half later. I feel better, I sleep better, I perform better, and all through a very simple process. The pounds and inches roll away, and most important, you get to that strong space where you feel like yourself again or like you've got that energy. And I'm not the only one. There are countless people across the country, and right here in the state of Utah, I love to hear from people who will send me a text or pull me aside at an event and say, Boyd, I did it. I did it, and it worked, and it can work for you. So as I always say, when it comes to your SOTA weight loss journey, there's no time to lose. There's only time to win. So start winning. Check it out at sotaweightloss.com, SOTA weightloss.com.
Quality, speed, value for your money, and $1,000 off any roof replacement. That's the IWC advantage. IWC, Intermountain West Contractors, delivers on the things most important to you when it comes time to replace your roof. There could be a dozen different reasons why your roof needs replacement, but just one answer to the problem: IWC. With IWC, you get quality because roof replacement is their specialty, and each job comes complete with the best warranties from the most trusted roofing material manufacturer in America. You get speed because IWC understands your time is valuable. In most cases, they can replace an entire roof in just one day. And with IWC, there's the value of knowing they use top-tier quality materials in every installation and deliver it all at an affordable price. And now, for a limited time, save $1,000 on a roof replacement project. Visit IWCroofing.com or call 801-232-5690. That's 801-232-5690.
If you love to follow breaking news like we do, register for breaking news alerts by texting the Cyprus Credit Union KSL text line. Text the word news to 57500.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Tim Hughes. First, former President Trump will be in a courtroom in Miami around 1 o'clock our time to be arraigned in the classified documents case. Second, Utah lawmakers holding interim meetings at the state capitol right now, and tomorrow afternoon they'll hold a special session where they will work out the details for upcoming election to replace Congressman Chris Stewart. And third, a man has pleaded guilty to 3 murders in Utah that took place over 15 years ago. We will look for a high today of 77 degrees, and right now in Salt Lake City with those lingering clouds at 63. Back now to David Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
David Dujanovic. Special coverage of the top local story.
There's a case going on in Summit County. It was in court again yesterday, and it has gotten a lot of national attention. This is about a Utah mom who is now stands accused of murder of her husband, and then writing a book about grief. And yesterday, a judge denied her bail as she awaits trial.
Accused of killing her husband, and we see the pictures, the family pictures, the photos of them together smiling. Are there many things in this world more disturbing than seeing those photos and knowing what they're accused of poisoning, murdering, whatever it might be? But we see these photos of them as a smiling, happy family.
Sam Metz is a reporter with the Associated Press. Sam, were you in court yesterday during this hearing for Corey Richins?
Hi, thanks for having me, Dave and Debbie. And yeah, I was in court yesterday with Corey Richens during the detention hearing. She came in, she was shackled, and they decided not to let her out on bail. That was the judge's discretion, and he decided not to let her out on bail pending trial.
What did we learn? I think there was a phone involved. There were searches on her phone. What do we know about that?
So the family Summit County hired a private investigator to go through Corey Richens' phone, in which they found some Google searches. She had searched for information about death certificates. She had searched luxury prisons for the rich. This isn't evidence per se that she did anything, but prosecutors are certainly going to try to paint this as motive if the case goes to trial.
So, Sam, let's just back up for a moment to when these allegations started to surface, and that she was eventually charged in the death of her husband. What is she accused by the prosecution of doing? Why don't you help our listeners understand that?
Sure. So Corey Richens is a 33-year-old mother of three from Camas, or Francis, which is a small town outside of Camas, who is accused of purchasing 30 fentanyl pills and drugging a Moscow mule to fatally poison her husband. This allegedly happened in March 2022, a month after she tried to poison a Valentine's Day sandwich with hydrocodone. Police spent about 14 months investigating, and last month they pressed charges for aggravated murder and drug possession against her. The case gained a lot of national attention, as you said, Debbie, because she self-published an illustrated children's book called Are You With Me? That she said on local media on a promotional tour was designed to help children grieve the loss of loved ones.
Was there anything in the book that was suspicious or peculiar that would lead you to think that she had done anything or committed any crime?
I don't think there's anything specifically suspicious in the book, but I think the case was certainly interested to a general public, because when you read the book and you see this illustration of an angel wing-clad father watching over his kids, it's a little eerie to square that with the charges that Corey is facing.
Sam Metz is with the Associated Press. He's a reporter who has been covering the trial and the hearing of Corey Richens, a Utah mom now accused in the murder of her husband. There's another side to this, and that's her side, Sam. And my understanding is, reading some of the news articles that were published about the hearing yesterday, is that her defense attorney tried to argue for her release, at least for now, on bail while she awaits trial. What was the defense?
So defense attorneys haven't presented a counter theory of the case yet, which they'll likely do at trial. But what her attorney said was basically a lot of the quote unquote evidence that prosecutors are putting forth about marital disputes, financial problems. What her attorney said is financial problems may prove that Corey is bad at math, but they don't prove that she's a murderer. Just because kind of it's this wild story that has captured a lot of people's attention doesn't mean that she's a murderer. So, writing a children's book doesn't make you a murderer. So I think that's kind of what the defense has said so far. They've tried to poke hole in the prosecution's case. They never found any fentanyl in the home after they searched the home. And a lot of the things like the Google search history is not kind of hard evidence. It's mostly circumstantial, is what defense attorneys have said.
Was there any indication, or do we know anything about what's happening with the children, with the father dead? She's in jail without bail. Do we know what's going on with the kids?
So Greg Skordas, who is a well-known Utah attorney, is working as victim advocate for the family and says that the three children are with a relative, one of Eric Richens' relatives.
Okay, Greg, of course, also our legal analyst here at KSL News Radio as well. I think he's talked about this case in the past. We have not talked to him about this case on our show, particularly Sam. So we appreciate you joining us and sort of filling in the gaps for our listeners who are unfamiliar. So the status is right now is that Corey Richins stays behind bars after the judge ruled no bail. Is that what's going on with her?
Good question. That is the status. Attorneys are going to have a scheduling conference on June 22nd, in which they'll likely schedule a preliminary hearing if they want this to go to trial. But keep in mind, she could issue a plea. We'll see what happens.
There's a lot that remains. What was her demeanor like in court yesterday? I saw photographs of her. I wasn't sure if those were from yesterday's hearing. Was she in the courtroom?
She was in court yesterday with members of her family and members of her husband's family as well. And at various times in court, she looked down towards her handcuffs and cried when they were talking about finding her husband dead and cold to the touch. Other times when the private investigator or forensic accountant were testifying, she appeared to shake her head indignantly or defiantly to suggest what they were saying wasn't true. So it looked like she wanted to fight the charges. I mean, I don't know what she's going to plea yet, but it looked to me like this could be a case and go to trial.
Sam Metz is a reporter for the Associated Press. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, appreciate it, Sam. And again, I mean, as Sam indicated, this could very well go to trial. It could, like, other cases end up in a plea agreement. We just don't know yet. That remains to be seen, but certainly a story that we will continue to follow here on KSL News Radio with the help of our producers and reporters, and thanks as well to the Associated Press and Sam. We've got a big couple of hours straight ahead, including live coverage. We're going to take you live to Miami, where News Nation reporter Robert Sherman is standing by live for us, Dave, at the courthouse. President Trump expected to arrive there an hour early. It is 2 hours before his scheduled arraignment. The arraignment itself expected to be short. He's expected, of course, as many defendants do, I would imagine most defendants do, walk in and plead not guilty. My understanding, and I don't know if this has changed, is that he will address the public after his arraignment today. And we are your source for all things regarding this presidential arraignment and this very historic moment right through the Jeff Kaplan's afternoon news.
KSL FM Midvale, KSL Salt Lake City. Listen on the KSL News Radio app and in your car at 102.7 FM. KSL News Radio, your all-day companion for news.
It's 10 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomis. KSL's top story this hour. Salt Lake City leaders getting ready to give their final seal of approval to a $444 million budget. KSL News Radio's Kate Davis reports.
The funding will be channeled to affordable housing initiatives and other programs that will help alleviate homelessness. The budget will go into effect at the start of July and also funds different areas of law enforcement. Also happening in July, a planned utility bill hike of 18% for water and 10% for sewer.
Officials say the utility bill increases will help the city pay for a new water treatment plant to meet federal regulations. Lawmakers are taking a close look at the Alpine School District's decision to close 5 schools to see whether parents were given the required 120 days notice. Legislators grilled board members for 2 meetings and ended with an agreement that Utah's state code could use a clarification for what counts as a proper notification. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. There are a few demonstrators outside the federal courthouse in Miami this morning. They're shouting their support for the former president. He'll make a court appearance this afternoon on the 37 criminal counts he's facing. He's accused of keeping classified documents at his home and trying to hide them from authorities. KSL News Radio will have live coverage of this afternoon's court proceedings. Your money at this moment. The Dow Jones average up 120 points on the day right now. The NASDAQ up 67 at this hour.
And the clouds are here in the morning today. The KSL weather's next. KSL News Time, 10:01.
What do you need to hear in the morning to feel ready for the day?
Important news that happened overnight, the traffic you'll hit on the roads.
You'll be ready for your day with us.
Join Utah's Morning News 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Everything's changing so fast these days, and that's a great thing. Back in my day, we were lucky to get one video to load on a desktop computer, but now there's the Xfinity 10G network. That means the fastest internet with faster speeds rolling out every day, and internet that can power a house full of devices with ultra-low lag. So while one person streams a movie from their room, another can play video games in the basement while another TikToks in the kitchen. It's the next generation 10G network only from Xfinity. The future starts now. Through July 21st, new customers can get started with gig internet on the Xfinity 10G network. Plus, get xFi Complete with unlimited data and Wi-Fi equipment included, all for just $30 a month for 2 years with no annual contract when you add Xfinity Mobile with unlimited data. Go to xfinity.com/10G, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit a store today. Requires paperless billing and auto pay with stored bank account. Restrictions apply. Taxes and fees extra. Xfinity Mobile requires Xfinity Internet. After promo, regular rates apply to internet service and devices. Gig Wi-Fi requires gig internet and xFi Gateway. Actual speeds vary.
In this market, you'll find Fisher Investments is different than other money managers.
Different how? Aren't we all just looking for the hottest stocks?
Nope. We use diversified strategies to position our clients' portfolios for their long-term goals.
You don't just provide cookie-cutter portfolios?
No, we tailor our clients' portfolios to their goals and needs.
But you still sell investments that generate high commissions for you, right?
No, we don't sell commission-based products. We're a fiduciary, the highest standard of care for a financial advisor. It means we're obligated to act in our clients' best interest.
So when do you make more money? Only when your clients make more money?
Yep, we have one transparent management fee structured, so we do better when our clients do better.
Sounds like you really look out for your clients.
We do, because our priority is helping them achieve a comfortable retirement. That might be why most of our clients come from other money managers. Visit FisherInvestments.com to find out why investors like you switch to us. Fisher Investments. Clearly different money management.
Investments in securities involve the risk of loss.
Elder abuse often goes unnoticed and unreported, especially when older adults are isolated and lack access to resources. Well, on June 15th from 10 to noon, you're invited to a virtual event hosted by the Utah Department of Health and Human Services and Aging Service Partners, because June 15th is World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. The focus of this year's conference is working together in collaborative partnership to educate, report, and prevent financial exploitation and other forms of maltreatment against older and vulnerable adults in Utah. You'll hear from a wonderful lineup of notable keynote speakers, including an introduction from Utah's Governor Cox. Please help protect Utah's older and more vulnerable adults, not just on one day, but every day. Attend this virtual event on June 15th from 10 a.m. to noon and find out what you can watch for. Text SENIOR to 57500 to register. That's SENIOR to 57500.
If you've got a honey-do list with electrical, plumbing, heating, or air conditioning projects on it, Any Hour Services can help. Call Any Hour Services, electrical, plumbing, heating, and air. anyhourservices.com.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Granite Credit Union's high-yield savings certificates. Here's Heather Kelly.
Traffic is still crawling along northbound I-15 between 2100 North in Lehigh and the Point of the Mountain. That's all due to an earlier rollover crash that had a couple of right lanes blocked. Now everybody's over to the right shoulder. It's in the final cleanup stages, but it's taking time for traffic to get back to normal. And then you'll have construction slow you down in some areas, especially US 40, as you make your way from the Pineview Reservoir up toward the Park City turnoff. Make Father's Day easy and get the best gift ever, a blanket or robe from Minky Couture. Shop online at minkycouture.com or any Minky store. Best gift ever. Minky Couture. Heather Kelly in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, clouds and thunderstorms sticking around through Thursday, and it'll stay cool with highs in the 70s, lows in the upper 50s. And right now, 64 degrees and cloudy at KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, your all-day companion for news.
Presidential indictment. In-depth coverage on KSL News Radio.
Will we expect the president to arrive at the federal courthouse in the next hour? His arraignment this afternoon, 1 o'clock our time. We're going to go straight to News Nation. Dave, Robert Sherman is standing by live for us in Miami.
Yeah, regarding the 37 federal charges he'll have to answer for. Robert, we're 2,500 miles away. We don't see exactly what's going on. I'm guessing your seat's a little better.
Yeah, you are definitely starting to see some of the energy hike up here in Miami at the courthouse. A few people starting to arrive and things of that nature. I do have to tell you that, this is going to be a pretty interesting day because there's a lot of things that are kind of happening behind closed doors. For one, we're not even sure if we're going to see the former president today, especially not entering the courthouse. An interesting thing about the Miami courthouse is that you actually can enter it through an underground tunnel in order to get in. So we're not anticipating we're going to see the former president arrive. Electronics in court are prohibited, so there's going to be no recording of that or anything of the kind. So it's going to be a bit different, than what we've seen in the past. So it's going to be a big game of wait and see today.
News Nation's Robert Sherman live in Miami as President of the United States. Former President Trump expected to arrive at a federal courthouse in the next several minutes. I heard about 11 o'clock our time, 1 o'clock your time there, Robert, and he needs to be processed. Is that accurate? As a criminal defendant, of all things,
yes.
Right?
Yeah, it'll be similar to New York in that, he's expected to go through the fingerprinting and go through the formal processing. We don't anticipate it's going to be much more than that. But again, a lot of this is really happening behind closed doors, and a lot of this is being left pretty vague as to what the whole process will look like. But he's going to go through the whole processing, and then he's going to be in court. This go around, there's no secret as to what's in this indictment, as it's already been unsealed. These 37 charges that he's facing, we're expecting that he's going to plead not guilty, and then he's going to get out of here and go back to New Jersey tonight, where he was supposed to have a 77th birthday party celebration. Now he's slated to give public remarks, and we're all anticipating he's going to come out swinging against the indictment and all of this, which is what he's been doing all day on social media as well. Obviously, he insists that he is innocent. He has done nothing wrong, and is calling this all politically motivated. So that's a position that he's been taking on this, and he stands to reason that he's going to continue with that throughout the day.
The Miami police chief said they are preparing for anywhere from 5,000 to 50,000 people. What are the setups right now around the courthouse?
Well, the last go-around for New York, to put this into perspective, New York police were on the ball. They were totally all over it. And I just remember those scenes from New York in which you saw this sea of people outside the courthouse, but 4 out of every 5 people were either a member of law enforcement or they were a member of the press. That's what we're seeing here again, is that, yes, there are demonstrators both for and against the former president around Miami. It really hasn't been out of control or anything of the kind. It's kind of a similar situation in which, yes, there is that law enforcement presence, kind of a peace through strength kind of strategy, right? By having this law enforcement presence. That's really the mantra that Miami has been going with as well here. So it's been under control. It's been tame, and we'll just wait and see how the whole day plays out.
Robert Sherman with News Nation, live in Miami at the federal courthouse, where the President of the United States, President Donald Trump, expected to arrive in a matter of moments to be arraigned on those federal charges named by the grand jury, listed by the grand jury in the indictment they handed up late last week. Robert, I think the name and the person that has got lost in all of this discussion is a guy by the name of Waltin Nadeau, I don't even know if I'm saying it right. He was President Trump's body man and is accused in this conspiracy of shuffling boxes around and, in fact, even hiding boxes of classified documents from President Trump's attorney, who came to do the search of those boxes at one point. I think it was late last spring. Where's he in all of this? We haven't even talked about him.
Good question. Yeah, we're actually not certain if he's going to be at the courthouse today at all or anything of the kind. You look at that indictment and those 37 counts. The former president All 37 of those counts pertain to him. Only a couple of them pertain to his associate. So that's a good question to have here, as well as who all is going to be here. I can tell you who is going to be there. We've gotten word that Jack Smith, the special counsel, arrived in Miami last night. We know that there's been a shuffling of the deck with the former president's legal team, with a couple of people exiting the team in the last couple of days. But Todd Blanche and Chris Keiss will be his legal counsel, who will be in that courtroom today. And this is subject to change, but chances are we are going to get some kind of a statement from legal counsel after all of this wraps up. Somebody will come out and say and give remarks right after court. Again, that's subject to change, but that's the guidance that we're getting right now. So more is going to be coming throughout the day. You know, there's a lot of anticipation surrounding this, and especially with there still being a lot of mystery as to how all this goes. Because, I mean, keep in mind, you know, this we like to say, you know, that as everybody's treated the same way under the system of justice. But there is something to be said for a former president. Things do operate differently. There's just no two ways about that. So how does this go today? You know, what differences are there? That still remains to be seen.
Robert Sherman with News Nation. Thank you for joining us live in Florida.
President Trump has already come out swinging. He may do so again tonight after he returns to New Jersey. You just heard from Robert Sherman there in Miami that the president is slated to speak. He's already said a few things after that indictment was handed up late last week.
When I left office and was moving to Florida, boxes were openly sitting on the White House sidewalk. Everybody was taking pictures of them. This isn't somebody smuggling boxes out. Pictures of them, you've all seen it, sitting with people from GSA and other people waiting to put them on a truck. But they were literally sitting outside of the White House waiting for a truck to come. Then the truck come. It was there for a long time, and they put it in, and they brought it down to Florida.
So again, if I'm President Trump's new defense team, stop admitting that you took boxes from the White House, Mr. President, and moved them down to your Gulf estate at Mar-a-Lago. Stop talking.
I think that's
about
settled,
it.
though. They found them in Florida. I don't.
You just look. When you're a defendant, you never want to help the prosecution with their case. You don't want to paint the roadmap for them so it makes their job easier. And what the defense team has, and it's going to be a heavy lift for them, is they have a defendant who's known to talk and talk and talk his way to the point where he has essentially admitted that he did that.
But he walks away unscathed. So often that is what happens. He is one thing that is surprising to me, and I guess maybe it shouldn't be, is how comfortable he is with being sued, with having charges brought against him. I would probably be, locked in my house with blinds drawn, but this is something the former president, just relishes. That's the best way I can describe it. He's cracking jokes in rallies. This is very, very different than the way most people would act, but his whole life as a businessman, he has dealt with the legal process and lawyers. That is just part of his standard operating procedure. That is his life, and he's shockingly comfortable with it.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Hi, it's Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
Why should you start your day with us?
We have decades of news experience between us.
And we take your trust seriously.
Come here for news tomorrow, 5 to 9.
On KSL.
The former president.
3 in 5 Americans view these charges as serious.
Charged for a second time.
Trump has long denied any wrongdoing.
Get all sides of this history-making story. The arraignment of former President Donald Trump. Mornings and afternoons all week on KSL News Radio. Your all-day companion for news.
Hey, folks, let me tell you about Free Frazzle Friday. I completely and totally took advantage of this on Friday. In fact, I sent it to the family group text, and everybody's sending me photos. Yeah, that's right. Free Frazzle Friday in June. If you're wondering what a frazzle is, it's a slushie, and they want to give you one free in the month of June. So every Friday in June, Frazzle is hooking you up with a free one. I get mine at Maverick. I drive past like 5 Mavericks on my way to work. And that's where I picked mine up. But you can also get one at Holiday Oil, Jackson's, Fast Stop, Top Stop, all the stops, it seems. So go in there on Friday, check out, see which flavor speaks to you. I like the mango one, pina colada, the Pog. That's the new one that I've just fallen in love with. That's pomegranate, orange, guava. That is outstanding. So if you're wondering where you can get that free Frazzle on Friday, go to freefrazzlefriday.com or download the Frazzle app. That's simple. Free Frazzle Friday.
Our state's children face a serious threat from the vaping industry, but thanks to state leaders and the Utah Health Department, Utah established the strictest nicotine standards for vaping in the United States to protect our kids. However, the vaping industry sued, claiming their sales and profits are down. Now they're pushing the health department to hand control of vaping regulations to the federal government. We can't allow that to happen. The proposed change would automatically increase nicotine levels in vape pens and reintroduce fruity flavors that entice our kids back into Utah convenience stores. Visit StopKidsVaping.com today and make your voice heard. Utah should maintain state control, preserve our 3% nicotine limitations, and prevent vaping flavors from returning to Utah convenience stores. Together, we can secure a better future for our children. Join us at StopKidsVaping.com and tell the health department, protect our kids.
Paid for by Prosperous Utah Communities.
Attorney Joe Cordell.
Business owners and professionals face special challenges in divorce court. In addition to everything else going on, they have to contend with allegations that they are earning more than they are, coupled with claims on their business or practice itself. Clients with assets depend on their divorce lawyer's skills in these matters, and that's why it's so important to hire someone that has those skills.
Schedule an appointment with one of Cordell & Cordell's Salt Lake City area attorneys. 910 West Legacy Center Way, Suite 120, Midvale, Utah, 84047.
Yeah, I'm so stressed. Our business is growing. We've got people all over now.
Ooma.
What is that? Meditation?
I'm recommending the Ooma cloud phone system with auto attendant and more than 50 features.
Ooma?
Yep. Switching to Ooma is a cinch. Just $24.95 per month per user, plus taxes and fees.
Ooma.
Now you're feeling it. Find small business calm at ooma.com/radio. That's OOMA.com/radio.
My friend and I are taking a trip to Mexico this year, but neither of us speak Spanish. So we downloaded Babbel and started learning Spanish fast.
Want to start getting conversational in another language in as little as 3 weeks? Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons were designed by language experts to be the most efficient and effective way to learn a new language.
¿Cómo te llamas?
¿Cómo te llamas?
Babbel, language for life. Celebrating 10 million subscriptions sold. Now try Babbel for free at Babbel.com. That's BABBEL.com.
Tune in and join KSL this Friday from 9 to noon for the movie show located at the Megaplex Theaters at Jordan Commons. The movie show this Friday at the Megaplex Theater at Jordan Commons.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, Salt Lake City ready to adopt a $444 million budget with utility rate increases and a boost in public safety spending. Second, legislators were grilling Alpine School District officials yesterday about just what kind of notice they're required to give parents before they consider closing schools. Third, protesters are starting to gather outside the courthouse in Miami, where former President Trump will be arraigned later today. Right now, 64 degrees and cloudy in Salt Lake City. Back to Dave and Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Dave and Dujanovic. Special coverage of the top national story.
We heard it here on Utah's Morning News when it happened. The announcement that inflation fell to 4% in May. It always is like a month behind, but 4% in May, lowest reading in more than 2 years.
Okay, Debbie, I want to celebrate it because it's coming down. It's hard to celebrate because I don't feel it. And that's one of the worst things about inflation is it goes up and down, but we don't feel it until a year has passed or a couple years have passed of sustained growth. And then all of a sudden you're like, how in the world does a candy bar cost $2.49?
How low is low? You know, when we talk about it's the lowest level in 2 years. Well, just reading just a whole bunch of different news articles on it. I caught this in Forbes. the lowest inflation rate since March of 2021, when prices rose at 2.6% on a yearly basis. So at what point, where were we at like last summer? Do you remember? Was that like 9%?
9.1%. That was the high. 9.1% in June of last year.
Context. The consumer price index is up 19% compared to May of 2020.
Okay.
So just after the pandemic starts, that it's to now we are up, let's just call it a nice round 20% in pricing.
And that, Debbie, is exactly what I was talking about. When you start looking at it over a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, 20% increase, using your big round number, that is devastating. Because say you're making $100,000. When inflation goes up 20%, now it's like you took a 20% hit. It's like your boss came in and said, you know what? I hate the job you're doing. I'm going to cut your salary by 20%. That would be devastating. Families would be absolutely obliterated. Oh, that's exactly what's happening right now.
Well,
everybody is scrambling because they're making 20% less.
Look at the bright side. It's better than your boss saying, I'm giving you a 100% pay cut and you're out of here. Give me your security badge. Good luck. Sarah Foster with Bankrate. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
We're excited, at the 4%, but when you look at it in context over the last, 3 years in, 20% over the last 3 years, it is a tough pill to swallow.
Well, we have been kind of accustomed to bad news, especially since the coronavirus pandemic began. So my gut reaction is, take the good news while you can. But you're right, prices are still uncomfortably high, even if they have slowed substantially since that 9.1% peak in June. And I think you can really find that by even looking at the measure of so-called core prices, which that excludes the more volatile food and energy categories. The real main reason for the slowdown in headline inflation was because gasoline is down about 20% from a year ago. Even food prices are starting to slow. We've been hit with eggs. Month after month, egg prices have climbed, and now we actually saw that they're down 0.4% from a year ago. But when you look at everywhere else, households are still having to spend more for the same amount of goods and services that they would have purchased a year ago and even before the pandemic.
Inflation isn't nearly as catastrophic when wages keep pace. And so many of us will get a cost of living increase every year where they'll bump your salary by 2 or 3% to kind of keep up with inflation. Do we have any understanding of what's going on right now as far as what people are making and what the wages are in comparison to the inflation?
Yeah, well, actually, we kind of had some good news this month because a separate report from the Department of Labor showed that wages have actually climbed 4.3% from a year ago. And that's the first time since March 2021 that they've climbed at a faster pace than overall headline inflation. But what I kind of go back to a lot is this game of catch up. I think while wages are just now picking up thanks to the strength in the labor market, Americans for more than 2 years have been hit with these higher prices. That's caused them to save less for emergencies. It's caused them to accrue more credit card debt. It's even made the prospect of saving for retirement even more difficult. I mean, when you have to think about the way you make ends meet when things are more expensive, it's often those other more prudent financial choices that we have to sacrifice. And so I think what that shows is that even when inflation cools, Americans are likely still going to be feeling the pinch of it.
Sarah Foster with Bankrate asked her to join the show because we've seen inflation drop to the lowest level that it's risen in 2 years. If you can follow my thought process on that, Utah's Morning News reporting this morning, inflation rose 4%, a lot better than what we saw last summer, even the summer before that, where we were just feeling those near double-digit increases. And in some cases, in some products, we were feeling way more than that 9-10% inflation. Sarah, okay, let's talk about the Fed, because the Fed is really at a crossroads right now as to whether to continue to raise interest rates, which in turn takes more money out of our pocketbooks because, well, when they raise interest rates, in due course, mortgage rates go up, credit card interest rates go up. Now they're, in some cases, above 22, 23% APR, which is just astounding. So what is the Fed to do? Do they take a pause? I think they have a meeting. Was it tomorrow? Do they take a pause this week on raising interest rates and see how things kind of flush out in the economy? Or do they dare inch us up a little more? And I think it would be the 11th interest rate hike in a row, if I'm counting right, maybe more.
Yeah, well, interestingly enough, the consensus here is that the Fed is likely going to not raise rates tomorrow, which is when at 2 p.m. they'll announce their interest rate decision. That's a big deal because the Fed has been hiking rates for 15 months, 10 consecutive times. I think what the Fed really wants to know now is if higher for longer is the answer to high inflation, meaning do we keep interest rates at this elevated level to slow the economy, or do we need to hike for longer, meaning this skip might essentially be a short-lived pause. The Fed has been saying that they're likely going to take a data-dependent approach. They're going to be making these decisions meeting by meeting. But I think what a pause or skip, whatever you want to call it at this meeting, what it gives the Fed is at least time to tell how much those rate hikes that they've already approved will be impacting the economy. And, of course, the other kind of elephant in the room here, of course, is that those major bank failures we had earlier this year, still not really, the full effects of those are still not realized. And so while I think the Fed is juggling determining how much those interest rate hikes they've already approved are impacting the economy, waiting a little bit could also give them more time to assess just how much a tightening of credit, a tightening of lending could be impacting the economy as well, because we know that both of those kind of do the Fed's work for it.
Sarah Foster with Bankrate, thank you for joining us.
Of course, you saw an article in Politico, Dave, this morning that said, hold on a second, because the real hurt is about to begin. And when you said that, I went, okay, keep reading. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so they have 10 straight times over the last 15 months, they have raised the interest rates to a historic level. We've never seen this before in such a short period of time. They were just making incredible jumps. So now, even though they're pausing, we are still stuck with these interest rates.
Because you're not hearing in the conversation that they're going to start lowering them anytime soon.
No, they're just saying, we're going to stop punching you in the face. We're going to let you have the black eye. Enjoy that for a moment. And then you've got to see, how does the economy heal? We're still at 4%, which is still double what it should be, what they want it to be. So their hope is that, okay, well, I can stop the punching. Now we've got to see if you can still stand up in the ring. And ultimately, the economy tells us if we go down, then that's the recession. If we're knocked out, that is the recession. They're hoping, they're like, I know we beat you up pretty good. If you can just stagger around for a few minutes and see if you can recover, then that would be great.
Thanks for the Mike Tyson analogy. Really put it in perspective. Next, we've got lots of show still on tap. We're going to talk about the cost of living. Dave found a cost of living calculator. He's going to compare Salt Lake City's cost of living to other cities that are hotspots for remote working, and also the place I most want to live in the United States. He's going to do the math for us with that. Also, heading up live to Ogden, where KSL News Radio's Adam Small has been covering an officer-involved shooting up in the Ogden area, yet another one. That's right. We had one last week. We had one early this morning. He's going to join us with those breaking details in just a matter of moments.
It's 10:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour is breaking news. We're hearing new developments out of Ogden about an officer-involved shooting, and KSL News Radio's Adam Small is live at a police news conference with details. Adam?
Dan, this is now the second officer-involved shooting in Ogden in just the last week. We're learning that this started around 1:30 this morning when officers were dispatched to the call of someone having a gun. It turns out Police are saying that this suspect fled the scene in a stolen vehicle, was later chased down to about 700 8th Street, when police are saying that this suspect got out of their car, fired at two officers. One officer actually managed to get out of their car and return fire, killing the suspect on scene. Again, this is the second officer-involved shooting in Ogden in just the last week. So another officer has been placed on leave. That's now 9 officers total from the past 2 shootings still on leave, but the Ogden Police Department says they're still in a good spot. But these officers are definitely feeling the effects of having to be involved in 2 shootings in just a week's time. Reporting live in Ogden, Adam Small, KSL News Radio.
Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Former NFL running back Peyton Hillis opening up about his harrowing rescue of his son and niece back in January, and both kids nearly drowned at a Florida beach. Hillis appeared on ABC's Good Morning America and told co-host Michael Strahan he ran into the surf after his mother pointed to the 8-year-old niece and 9-year-old son in distress in the water.
I think the scariest point to me was when I'm swimming to my son and I have to pass by him because my niece is in more danger.
Hillis says it was a close call for all 3 of them, but they made it back to the beach safely. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up 186 points so far today. The NASDAQ is up 89 points. And we've got clouds in the morning today. Our KSL weather's next. KSL News Time, 10:32.
We have enough people running around Broadcast House at 4 in the morning to field a football team.
Producers, reporters, the traffic team, and us.
This is Tim and Amanda.
Join us each morning from 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Text us here in the studio about the weather in your area. The Cyprus Credit Union KSL text line is 57500.
Les Olson IT is now a Ricoh Graphic Arts and Production Systems dealer. Ricoh chose Les Olson because of our reputation for superior service and national recognition. Les Olson IT chose Ricoh Graphics because they're the best value compared to other commercial-grade printers. Ricoh excels in high volume, high speed, high resolution, and offers an exciting 5th color. Learn more at lesolson.com.
Les Olson IT.
Introducing Yes, Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric. We're bringing all of Utah's favorite HVAC, plumbing, and electrical brands under one roof. Call the pros at Yes and save up to $1,000 on select new energy-efficient HVAC systems. Plus, you get a free whole-home air purification system to help reduce harmful airborne contaminants in your home. The same great people providing the same great service that Utah has counted on for more than 45 years. Visit theyesmancan.com to schedule your appointment.
At Shane Company, we believe everybody is made to shine. It doesn't matter who you are or where you're from. Shining is not for a chosen few. Like a rare gemstone, each one of us was created under just the right set of circumstances. Your moments, your milestones, your love story, all deserve to shine bright. You don't need an occasion or an invitation. You and your life are the event. At Shane Company, we handcraft our jewelry with the greatest care and hand select the most beautiful gemstones so you can shine. So put on a pair of earrings that make your eyes sparkle. Wear diamonds that light up the room. Try on sapphires in every color of the rainbow. Give an heirloom that collects new stories with each generation. We're all made to shine. Shane Company, fine jewelry since 1929.
Hey, if you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, it's time to change the game. It's all about changing the conversation. I did that 18 months ago with SOTA Weight Loss. SOTA stands for state-of-the-art weight loss because it is state-of-the-art. I lost 37 pounds in less than 90 days, and here I am a year and a half later. I feel better, I sleep better, I perform better, and all through a very simple process. The pounds and inches roll away, and most important, you get to that strong space where you feel like yourself again or like you've got that energy. And I'm not the only one. There are countless people across the country, and right here in the state of Utah, I love to hear from people who will send me a text or pull me aside at an event and say, Boyd, I did it. I did it, and it worked, and it can work for you. So as I always say, when it comes to your SOTA weight loss journey, there's no time to lose. There's only time to win. So start winning. Check it out at sotaweightloss.com, SOTA weightloss.com.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Granite Credit Union's high-yield savings certificates. Here's Heather Kelly.
Well, traffic is moving at speed across the Wasatch Front, especially on I-15 where most of the traffic is. You shouldn't have any delays right now throughout Utah, Salt Lake, Davis, or Weber counties, either northbound or southbound. You also have a good commute around the Salt Lake Valley on the east and west side belt routes and the 201 freeway, and not a lot of crashes reported right now. From now through July, get triple reward points on gas and travel with Visa Platinum Rewards card from Cyprus Credit Union. Visit cypruscu.com to learn more. Heather Kelly in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, clouds and thunderstorms stick around through Thursday, and it'll stay cool with highs in the 70s, lows in the upper 50s. And right now, it's 66 degrees and cloudy at KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com. Your all-day companion for news.
KSL News Radio's Adam Small has been tracking developments in the Ogden area, Dave, of an officer-involved shooting happened earlier today. Don't have a lot of details yet, but I know he just attended a news conference. Yeah, he's there live on the scene.
He's live on the scene. Adam, give us an update. What do you know?
Yeah, Dave, Debbie. So the big thing to take away from this is now 2 officer-involved shootings in Ogden in just the last week. So what we're hearing right now is that they got a disturbance call around 1:30 this morning, just before that, to an area. They were told that somebody had a gun. Multiple officers responded because that's obviously a dangerous situation if that's a true report. But then they're also saying that the suspect fled the scene in what they later learned was a stolen vehicle, found it, tried to stop it, but the suspect, they're saying again, fled again. And then they eventually were able to get the car to stop. But they're saying that suspect got out, started firing on those 2 officers in their car while they're still in the car. They've not been able to draw their weapons. They've not been able to get out. One of those officers manages to get out, returns fire, kills the suspect on scene, and now that one officer is on leave. But that's now 9 total officers between last week's officer-involved shooting, where one officer was actually injured, and then one now from last night. That's 9 officers on leave and 2 officer-involved shootings in a week here in Ogden.
Is there a sense that they are understaffed now? Has there been remarks?
Thankfully, no. So we did talk to one sergeant who was able to chat with us a little bit after the news conference, and he did say that they've been fully staffed for the last few months. So they're fully staffed as about 150 officers. They have 9 out. It definitely makes an effect to some degree, I'm sure, on their scheduling and whatnot. But in terms of having the officers they need to cover and take care of the city, no. That thankfully I kind of compared it between the Farmington officer-involved shooting that gathered a lot of attention some months ago. But, I mean, this is a much bigger department with a lot more resources.
And, Adam, just so we're clear, none of the officers today involved in this shooting where a man was killed, although it sounds from the police department's account that the person with the gun opened fire on the officers before they were able to get out of their cars. None of those officers were hit by bullets?
No, they've not reported any injuries. So, I mean, it's a good question, Debbie, because I can imagine that situation where you've got bullets. I mean, imagine some maybe coming towards that windshield. I mean, they're very lucky to be okay. But, yeah, no injuries reported on the officer side.
Adam Small, thank you for joining us.
Right on the money. Special coverage with Dave and Dujanovic.
We just spoke with Bankrate Live about the inflation numbers in May. They're starting to dip, only up 4%, but not the 9% we were seeing and higher several months ago. But Dave found this amazing online calculator to compare the cost of living in Salt Lake City to other cities. And there's this new report out to couple with that, Dave, about the number 1 city to find remote work. So I wondered if we could talk about the cities that are popular for remote work and then talk about what the cost of living is there.
Yeah, I think we've all done this, right? We've all gone on and seen these calculators and wondered, can I afford this place? Can I live there? Can I live in San Francisco? Not that I'd ever want to live in San Francisco, but I think we've all played the what if game. A lot of times it was not really attainable. But now that we've learned how to work remotely, and that has become very, very common in America, I think it has brought up an entirely different conversation where we can start thinking, okay, it's so expensive here. Can I do my job somewhere else?
So I'm looking at this report. where did we get CNBC? This is where we got the report, CNBC. And here's the 10 most popular cities to find remote jobs. Would be Washington, D.C., and would be number 1. And then San Francisco would be number 2. And then you've got to go to London to find the 3rd most popular city. But Chicago, Atlanta, Phoenix, all on the list. But if these are remote jobs, it doesn't mean you have to live in that city.
Yeah,
right?
What this is saying is if you live in Washington, that you can probably do your job remotely. So live somewhere else, because Washington is 30% more. It costs 30% more than the national average. San Francisco costs 40% more than the national average.
So let's flip over to your handy-dandy cost of living comparison calculator that you found on the real estate website, right?
Yeah, Redfin.
And can you compare, I'm just curious, the cost of living in Salt Lake City to Baltimore, Maryland, for example, which is just outside of Washington, D.C. When I worked for the FBI, there were times when I would actually, commute back and forth when I had to go to headquarters to that area. So I know it's not too far. But can you do that on your calculator?
I got it.
Okay, what is it?
30%.
Higher?
30% higher.
To live in Baltimore.
Yeah.
So it's not really worth living.
So say
in Baltimore, if you live in Salt Lake City, you don't want to move there because it's more.
Well, you just have to make sure you take that into account. So if you're a school teacher and you're making $50,000 here, then you're going to have to make 30% more in D.C. So you could be very excited thinking, oh, holy cow, in D.C. they're offering $65,000 to teachers for starting salary. Well, that's actually making less than you are at $50,000 because the buying power is not as good in Washington. So you have to make sure that if I'm going to move and if I'm looking at how much people are going to pay me, make sure you factor in the cost of the area that you're moving into. Are you curious at all how Utah is in general compared to the national average?
Oh, of course. I'm always wondering.
Because it feels really high. I think that's, if we're just going off our gut feeling, there's no question that it feels like it's high. Well, housing, 21% more than the national average.
Here.
Yeah, here in Utah. So $600,000 for an average home in Salt Lake City. The average home nationally, $408,000. So that is a significant amount. Rents aren't terribly different. $1,600 a month for rent here in Salt Lake, $1,400 nationally. So rent is in the ballpark, but about $200,000 more as far as buying a home.
Never been to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, but I have this vision of retirement in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. So how does that cost of living calculator work when you plug in the figures?
This is hilarious because I thought the same thing. Like, Myrtle Beach, that sounds amazing.
So if I move from Salt Lake City, I physically pick up and move. I say bye-bye, and I moved to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, right on the ocean. Would I have to pay a lot more money to survive there financially, or would I spend less? What do you think?
I thought it was going to be more because beach living, I mean, yes, beach living is hurricane living as well. So maybe this plays into it, but I was absolutely shocked. Myrtle Beach, housing wise, 79% less than Utah. You can get a home for $329,000. That same median home in Salt Lake, $600,000. Your rent? How about this? Tell me your kids wouldn't just love this. Rent, not the $1,600 you're paying here in Utah, $950
a month
in Myrtle Beach a month.
Not a week.
Nope. It does feel like a week sometimes.
So your point is that before you pick up and move, or you make a big life decision, that cost of living calculator is very, very valuable in helping you analyze expenses, all expenses, right? Does that factor in,
they do
utilities?
Transportation, they do utilities, health care. All of these things are taken into account. Again, this is a website. Redfin is where we found it. The cost of living comparison. It's great. It really spells out how much you need to make. I remember, Deb, because I looked at a job several years ago. There was a job that I was perfect for, by the way, in Washington. I was perfect for this job.
D.C.?
Yeah, D.C. And I was looking at at how much they were offering. Like, that's a great salary. I go in, I put in the cost of living calculator. I had no idea. Housing was so expensive. And sure enough, right now, and back then, 30-40% more than Utah. And the raise was not 40% more.
Of course not.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Before Dave and Debbie get started each day, this station is all news all morning.
And later today, we follow up on those stories as you drive home.
Get important news all morning and all afternoon.
Here on KSL News Radio.
At Intermountain Primary Children's Hospital, we made a bold promise to build the nation's model health system for children. Join us in realizing our vision for the future of pediatric care. So together, we can expand primary children's impact and ensure every child has access to the right care at the right place at the right time. For a century, Primary Children's has kept the child first and always. Help us continue to do so for the next 100 years. To get involved, visit primarypromise.org.
The roar of our engines, the pump of our heartbeats, the pedal to our metal, the sparks that ignite us, the pistons that push us, the passions that drive us. From the feelings that move us to the places that pull us on the roads that unite us. With nearly 6,000 stores and over 17,000 auto care centers, Napa has America's largest network of parts and care, here to keep you firing on all cylinders.
If your water heater's over 10 to 15 years old, congratulations. You've beat the average. What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and I love hearing stories of people having water heaters that are really old and they're still doing their job. Unfortunately, most of us won't be that lucky. And when water heaters fail, it's usually in spectacularly inconvenient fashion. Whether it's an unexpected cold shower when we're already running late for work, or worse yet, coming home to a flooded basement, it's never fun. If you'd like to look into replacing your water heater before it fails, Any Hour Services is having a sale for any homeowners listening. Whether you're looking for a new tanked water heater or you want to see what upgrading to a tankless would cost, the plumbers at Any Hour Services can show you what options are available. And right now, you can save $400 on a tanked water heater or $1,200 on a tankless. If you think you might be interested, call Any Hour Services today and schedule your free estimate. 801-443-7400. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Troy, I want to spoil the crud out of our amazing customers during Bish's RV Customer Appreciation Month.
Oh, I'm with you. We're throwing the biggest customer appreciation sale in our history.
Okay, this should be good.
For starters, employee pricing is back on select RVs. Go to Bish's.com and click the Get Lowest Price button.
Stop! Cut the music.
What the heck?
You're leading with employee pricing? You gotta save your best for last, not first.
Can I just get back to the sale?
Just saying. Hit it, guys.
On top of employee pricing on select RVs, we're giving you 90 days no payments for all play and no pay OAC.
That's good too.
And no reasonable offer will be refused on remaining 2022s.
Whoa.
Plus, we'll trade anything. Just ask.
Cut the music.
What now?
Sorry, just feeling a little power hungry.
Is that it?
Yep, you're doing great. Hit it, guys.
Get employee pricing, 90 days no payments OAC, amazing trade value, and more during Customer Appreciation Month at Bish's RV in North Salt Lake and our new location in American Fork. Bish's RV, where memories begin.
Whether you own a local business or a global one, you're always looking for ways to position your operation to create opportunities and move on them faster. With Bank of America, you get access to experts, award-winning insights, and business solutions so powerful, you'll make every move matter, locally and globally. Visit bankofamerica.com/banking for business to learn more. What would you like the power to do? Copyright 2023 Bank of America, N.A.
I'm Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I learned about atrial fibrillation the hard way. My symptoms would come and go, shortness of breath, fatigue. I kept going. Then I got so lightheaded, I couldn't. My doctor said I have AFib, so I'm about 5 times more likely to have a stroke. Other symptoms, irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain can come and go, but the risk of stroke stays. If you have symptoms, tell a doctor. Visit notimetowait.com.
Sponsored by Bristol Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, a man is dead and two more Ogden police officers are on paid leave after an officer-involved shooting this morning. Second, Utah legislature talking about funding for prisons and flood mitigation during interim committee meetings today. And third, an NFL player recalled the harrowing rescue of his son and niece when they were caught in offshore currents at a beach in Florida. Right now, 66 degrees and cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Dave and Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Presidential indictment. In-depth coverage on KSL News Radio.
And Dave and I, of course, always fixated on the monitors here in studio. We looked up at CNN moments ago and saw a major motorcade of police officers. Looked like they were arriving at Mar-a-Lago. Is that what you saw too, Dave?
Yeah, it said moments ago. I have no idea what direction they were headed, if they were running from or to anybody.
There were a lot of them. We are expecting the president to arrive at a federal courthouse in downtown Miami in the next few minutes. He was slated to arrive at about 11 o'clock our time. His arraignment scheduled for 1 o'clock our time, which means 3 o'clock in Florida. And it sounds like Greg Skordas, there's a procedure that's going to take place before he gets before a judge. And as our legal analyst who has helped defendants through this process in state court and federal court, what does that process look like for the president?
Well, it looks like it does for everyone else. And some people call it a booking process, but it simply means that you would report to the law enforcement agency. And in his case, it will be the U.S. Marshals at the courthouse there, where he will be processed, which means he will be fingerprinted and photographed just as any other person accused of a crime is, and then he will almost certainly be released. I can't imagine that they will have bail or detention or anything on a case like this. I assume that he'll be released and he'll be able to appear on his own in the court. And then when the court hearing itself goes today, he'll enter a not guilty plea, and then the judge will just schedule dates for the government to give the evidence over and pretrial motions and a trial date itself.
I've heard that a few times, like any other person, but I guess any other person doesn't have Secret Service. Any other person doesn't get away without a mugshot, which was what happened in New York. I think that kind of surprised folks that there was no mugshot that I saw. How do courts handle this? Is this a kind of offsetting for them, or is this a little weird when they bring in, I guess, the celebrity?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we were up in Park City yesterday on the Corey Richins case, and it was just a mob of media. And I'm sure the Trump case is exponentially more complicated and big than that was, but that was bad enough. The Lori Vallow case that we saw up in Ada County, Idaho, a couple months ago. I mean, judges don't like this, courts don't like this, and we heard from the county sheriff there, where the former president's about to appear, that he's got heightened security there for what he anticipates would be a large number of protesters and whatnot. So you're exactly right, Dave. There's nothing regular about what's about to happen in the federal court there in Florida.
We're looking at video from CNN right now. It just happens to be they're the only ones not in a commercial break as we're looking up at the monitors here, Greg. And it does appear there are a number of people, members of the public gathering, certainly members of the media as well outside the courthouse. But it does seem, from all appearances, at least right now, that things are calm. We've heard chanting. Of course, chanting is an exercise of First Amendment rights. That certainly does not cross a line. I see some American flags. I see a gentleman draped with a Trump 2024 flag as though he's wearing it as a cape. I see a guy dressed as Uncle Sam. But it does appear right now that perhaps the chief of police was right when he said, we're preparing from 5 to 50,000 people. We don't know how many, but we anticipate that things will remain calm. Let's hope.
Yeah, let's really hope. But you have to remember, Debbie, and I'm sure you do, that on January 6, 2021, there was more than just a peaceful protest to something else that the former president was involved in. And hopefully he doesn't incite a group again, and hopefully he keeps things cool and quiet, and we have an orderly process today. but you just never know with Donald Trump how things are going to go through. But I can tell you this, from what I've seen with the county sheriff there, they're ready for anything, and I think that's the best approach you have in something like this.
Greg Skordas, KSL legal analyst, speaking with us. And Greg, one thing that has really surprised me throughout, I guess maybe the last few months, is how the former president is reacting, especially to this latest indictment. I want to play a little bit of a soundbite from him, and he was almost mocking or joking about the indictment. Let me play this for you.
Because they want to use something called the Espionage Act. Doesn't that sound terrible? Oh, espionage. We got a box. I got a box. The Espionage. The Espionage Act of 1917. I think it was put in there about World War I boxes.
I found it so fascinating, the tone that Trump would take. I think if I were ever indicted, I don't know, I would be so nervous. But in his world, as a businessman, he deals with lawyers all the time, and it feels like there's a comfortability factor with the entire process that is very unique.
Yeah, and he's always been sort of the deflect, deny, deceive. You just don't admit anything. The best defense is a good offense, and attack your attackers. And it's worked for him. He's had a tremendous success by going after those people that have chosen to go after him. So it's not surprising. It's disappointing because, I respect the court system. I respect what we do. I respect the rule of law. And to see someone who clearly doesn't is disappointing, but hopefully the judge will reel him in today.
Greg, we only have about a minute left. Of course, we're going to return to our coverage in the 11 o'clock hours. We expect President Trump to arrive for his arraignment on that multiple count indictment, federal indictment on classified documents there in Miami. But I've said it before, and obviously he doesn't listen to me, doesn't care what I say, probably doesn't even, I don't even think he reacts to what his lawyers are telling him. But he does seem to just talk willy-nilly about the case at any time he feels like, or other cases. And in some cases, he's actually, in my view, admitting that he did it. What do you tell him as a defense attorney? How do you handle him?
You don't. Debbie, you can't. We've had clients like that. You've dealt with individuals like that. You can tell them, you can beg them, you can plead with them not to make comments to the media, not to talk to the press, not to talk to the public, not to besiege the prosecutor.
Not to incriminate themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't work with him. Right.
All right.
It's sad.
But it has worked. He's been very effective with this style. Right. Greg Skordas, thank you for joining us.
We expect the president to arrive in the next few minutes. We will take you there to the Miami courthouse the moment he is seen, although he may not be seen, as we heard from News Nation, who is standing by live for us in the 10 o'clock hour. There are, underground pathways to the courthouse, very typical. And so the defendant himself, President Trump, may not be seen by the media cameras before he enters.
KSL FM Midvale, KSL Salt Lake City. Listen on the KSL News Radio app and in your car at 102.7 FM. KSL News Radio, your all-day companion for news.
It's 11 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. Our top news, a breaking story out of Ogden. A suspect is dead after the second officer involved the shooting in the past week in Ogden. Police are saying the suspect fired at two officers after they fled an attempted traffic stop. One officer was able to get out of the car under fire and shoot back. The suspect was killed there at the scene. The officer who fired his weapon is now on paid leave. After the I-95 disaster in Pennsylvania, Utah's Department of Transportation says it's prepared to deal with most anything that could happen on our roads. Spokesperson John Gleason says Utah has experienced damage from earthquakes and tanker fires in the past.
We work with law enforcement and with our signal timing group out of the Traffic Operations Center to adjust timing or to provide an alternate route.
Gleason says they try to minimize the length of time that drivers are inconvenienced, but the amount of damage always determines how long things will take to fix. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Former President Trump expected to arrive at any moment at the federal courthouse in Miami to answer charges of retaining classified records and trying to hide them from authorities. Republicans like Lindsey Graham of South Carolina says he doesn't believe that there was any malice in Trump keeping the hundreds of boxes of records. Graham also telling reporters he thinks this trial will take a while.
I don't think this trial goes to trial before the election. There are just way too many issues in his case for this trial to move forward.
KSL News Radio will have live coverage of the former president's court proceedings this afternoon. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up 183 points right now, and the NASDAQ is up 115. Looks like we've got the cloudy skies in the morning today. KSL weather's next. KSL News Time 11:01.
Start your days with knowledgeable, friendly voices telling you about the latest news and weather out there.
Hi, this is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon
In the business of waking you up each morning from 5 to 9.
on KSL News Radio.
It's back, and you will be too. Back for 2023 in their new location, June 15th through the 17th at the Cache County Fairgrounds. It's the Summerfest Arts Fair, featuring local and regional artists and musicians. You are going to love this, like you loved it before. Art, painting, ceramics, music, food. Summerfest Arts Fair is loaded with all the things you and the family love most. Then get set for an amazing lineup of musicians, featuring headliners, the Painted Roses, Latin Roots Salsa, and the Solistics. Enjoy other regional musicians like Highline Drifters and the Fry Pan Band. This is where local, regional, and national artists come together to celebrate the arts. So discover 140 artist booths, 38 performing groups, and 30 food vendors, along with a plein air art competition. Get full details at logansummerfest.org. logansummerfest.org. Summerfest Arts Fair, June 15th through the 17th at the Cache County Fairgrounds. That's the Summerfest Arts Fair, June 15th through the 17th at the Cache County Fairgrounds.
Have you Googled yourself lately? Are there negative posts from an ex-employee or from a former client? Maybe an outdated news article or sensitive personal information about your family? Search engines don't always get it right. For right or wrong, it's your reputation on the line. That's where Reputation Defender by Norton comes in. One of the most trusted names in online reputation repair, Reputation Defender has been fixing people's search results for over 15 years. Their cutting-edge approaches help you to wipe away unwanted information in your search results. They also promote the good stuff so that it rises to the top, helping you put your best foot forward. Your good name is too valuable to leave to the whims of a Google algorithm. Take control with Reputation Defender. You can start by getting your free reputation report card at reputationdefender.com or call 800-401-6681 to speak to an expert. That's 800-401-6681.
Want to annihilate payroll problems? Wipe them out with Paycom. Paycom torches timesheet errors like a flamethrower. Oh, obliterates overtime blunders like a wrecking ball. Holy mackerel! And PTO problems? Paycom leaves them pulverized. Wow! Because with Paycom, employees do their own payroll right in the Paycom app. They find and fix errors before payroll submission, so HR can tackle important stuff, like performance incentives and retaining top producers, so your people can crush their goals. And with Paycom, employees enter and manage their own HR info, like onboarding, tax setup, and benefits enrollment. It's all in one powerful software with ironclad security. Stop doing that! Sick of HR and payroll headaches? Don't just eliminate them. Demolish them! At paycom.com.
June 15th is Elder Abuse Awareness Day, and the Utah Department of Health and Human Services is hosting a virtual event from 10 to noon. Text SENIOR to 57500 to register.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Granite Credit Union's High Yield Savings Certificates. Here's Ricky Meeks.
Emergency crews have been called to a swift water rescue. Drivers in the area watch for them arriving at the scene at 3800 South, 1050 West. It's a delay-free drive on the Valley freeways, but we do have an accident in the cleanup stages. Northbound I-15 in Lehigh approaching 2100 North. Also a crash on Highway 89 in Davis County. This is northbound at Oak Hills Drive in Fruit Heights. The Utah Symphony's Deer Valley Music Festival in Park City features Ben Folds, Leanne Rimes, the Beach Boys, and more. June 30th through August 4th in Park City at DeerValleyMusicFestival.org. Ricky Meeson, the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, clouds and thunderstorms stick around through Thursday. It'll stay cool with highs in the 70s, lows in the upper 50s. 66 degrees, mostly cloudy right now at KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com. Your all-day companion for news.
Dave and Dujanovic have inside sources.
And now being told that the president is expected to arrive in Miami at that federal courthouse in about 45 minutes or so, 50 minutes from now. Once that happens, ABC News will take over coverage from there. They have, of course, reporters in Miami. There won't be any recording devices inside that federal courthouse. There will not be cell phones allowed inside that federal courthouse. And I want to make it clear to our listeners that that is standard operating procedure from all of my years in covering trials in federal court. You don't bring your cell phone in. You cannot have a camera in the courthouse. Much different than what we see in state courts.
Yeah, and as soon as we learn more and stuff starts happening, and this is supposed to be super boring, he comes in, he gets arraigned, says not guilty. I think that's the extent of the fireworks, which is like a fizzly, sizzly nothing.
I think you'll actually see more commentary about the helicopters that are hovering over the motorcade, coming and going. There won't really be a lot because the judge is basically just going to go through what we already know is in the indictment. Those will be the charges. Those will be read to the former president. He will respond to those. There may be some dates set in terms of preliminary hearings or things that are required by the court. But that's really the extent of what will happen inside the courtroom today. Of course, other things could happen outside of the courthouse. That will be something to be watching as well.
The one thing that was not spelled out in the indictment is a real connecting of the dots by the prosecutor about motive here. Why did the president, who has said, the boxes got packed up at the White House and got moved to Mar-a-Lago. He said that last week after the indictment was handed up. Governor Chris Christie took to the stage last night at his town hall. CNN has been doing a number of town halls with GOP candidates for president. Chris Christie, former governor of New Jersey, one of them, also a former federal prosecutor of note. And he told Anderson Cooper, I think, in my view, he got closest to motive that I've heard anybody get. Let's listen.
You know him very well. Yes. Why do you think he did it? I mean, he cannot live with the fact that he lost to Joe Biden. He can't live with it. And look, I watched the way Joe Biden's performing. I'd be pretty bummed out too if I'd lost to Joe Biden. But the fact is he did. And he wants to continue to pretend he's president. He wants the trappings of the presidency around him. And I think one of those trappings is these documents.
You know what? I just thought about this. What do I care what Chris Christie thinks? It's an opinion, right? This guy has no special knowledge about this just because he used to work for the guy and he's being asked to figure out, why did he do this? Very much, opinions like belly buttons. Everyone has one, right? I mean, I don't know. I listen to it, and we're so desperate to get answers that we'll basically take opinions from anybody.
And that's the thing that we all need to be cautious about as this continues forward, is we do live in this age of snap judgment. Everyone wants instant certainty about everything that's going on, including the motive. And while that's an interesting take from Chris Christie, it clearly does not hold up in a court of law. Right. Clearly, I guarantee the prosecution is not going to come and say, well, the reason he did all this is because he likes the trappings of the president. Right.
They're not required to show a motive. The jury likes, as we heard from Greg Skordas, the jury often likes to hear what the motive is so they can have a clear understanding of the why to it, but they're not required to present a motive. I do feel as though, and there's no instant certainty on my part. We've been waiting for months, if not more than a year, for the president to turn these documents over. As a former FBI employee who maintained a top secret clearance and was required to abide by the rule of law, regarding that top secret clearance. It is upsetting that there's somebody who has access to these documents that does not have a security clearance, and that being a reporter that he allegedly showed the documents to, staff members without clearances that he allegedly showed the documents to, and the way those documents were stored. Many of us I know personally who worked for the FBI would have just been absolutely scared to death to leave the facility. Yeah. We never did with anything we were not entitled to. So from my perspective, it's I'm not judging instant certainty here, but I would like to know, and I think the American people do deserve to know why, what the why is.
Yeah, absolutely. And all I'm saying is that that's not going to happen today. That's going to happen in the case as it's brought forward. And so I agree with that in terms of nobody's above the law. That's an important part of this. And I think the other component that people are going to get to is what's being targeted. What did the president do? When did he know? All of those kinds of things. And that'll all play out in the course of the case. And that's what I think we have to let play out. And he will be in front of a jury of his peers, as we're all entitled to. And that will play out that way. And I think the important thing for us is we get wrapped around the axle on a whole host of different things as we go through these kinds of things, especially during an election year. And so is it political targeting? You can go through all the arguments from across the spectrum. And the thing that matters is exactly what you said, Debbie. It is the rule of law. And the most important thing that I think we have to be very cautious, because you're going to hear a lot of this, is the yeah, but conversation. Yeah, but what about Joe Biden's document? Yeah, but what about Mike Pence's document? Yeah, but what about Hillary Clinton?
Yeah, but what about the special prosecutor and his motive? I've heard a lot of that.
Exactly. And there is no yeah, but. When you start playing in the yeah, but game, you're not playing in reality. And more importantly, you're not playing in the spectrum of truth. And the only thing that matters in this is the truth. And so the process, we have to trust the process to roll out. And I think this is the most important conversation of all in all of this, is our trust in the institutions and their ability to go through the process. And that's what we should be watching for. What is the process? How does that play out? Because if we undermine our confidence and trust, which is already at an all-time low in this country in terms of our institutions of government, that's where we really get into trouble.
Well, and we love to undermine it. And you can look back whether it was Nixon in the presidency, whether it's JFK and his affairs, or Bill Clinton, or even asking our police officers to all wear body cameras because we don't trust what you say any longer. You have to prove it. Yeah. Every moment of your day, you have to wear a body camera. So there's this erosion where we no longer accept your excuse. We need you to prove it. And I think, to your point, Boyd, that is part of the undermining of the system and the trust that we have.
And that's where we have to exhale. We all have to step back and exhale and not get caught up in the emotion and the politics of it all, because the core to this whole thing is the institution and trust the process. And we have to move through that. And it's not an easy thing to do. It's much easier to go onto your social media feed and get all wound up about what somebody said. Somebody said they thought they heard somebody else say they did, and they know it for sure. That's where we get into the big yeah, but conversation. And the yeah, but keeps us a very safe distance from the truth.
Well, and that's such a great point, Boyd, because all of this conversation is about an indictment, a one-sided document from a prosecutor. We have not heard the defense. They have not given us their point of view, but it's very easy to get sucked into the conversation of a very one-sided conversation.
And the most dangerous thing at all, I remember being in Cleveland for the convention in 2016, and of all the crazy things that happened there, the thing that was most sickening to me was listening to the chants, "Lock her up," in reference to Hillary Clinton. And whether you loved Hillary Clinton, you hated Hillary Clinton, you thought she was guilty of this, that, or the other, the moment we allow those in the highest offices in the land to politicize and to target political opponents, that's where we undermine that trust. That's where we lose it. And so whether you're saying lock up Hillary or lock up Donald, that's part of the problem. We got to get back to the process and the institutions and the trust.
Boyd Matheson, we know that your coverage today will focus on Miami as well. ABC News helping us out there as they stand by live and await the president's arrival at that Miami courthouse. Supposed to be there now at noon. We thought originally that was going to be at 11 o'clock, but it does look as though the major news networks reporting that his motorcade is getting ready to head to the courthouse from Mar-a-Lago. Next, we're going to head up to Utah's Capitol Hill because lawmakers up there are getting ready for a special session. Senate President Stuart Adams calling in 3 minutes.
Dave and Dujanovic. Hey, stay right here for more of Dave and Dujanovic.
And tomorrow morning, come back here for news, traffic updates, and reliable weather.
Join us to have a listen. Tim and Amanda.
Your morning companions for news.
Summer is here.
School's around.
So if it's your turn to entertain the kids,
or you just need to get to work on time,
we have you covered.
Traffic and weather together every 10 minutes on the 9s.
From KSL News Radio.
102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Or ask Alexa. Play KSL News Radio.
When interest rates rise, it's not all bad. I'm Jeff Jr. with Trajan Wealth, helping you understand why now is the time to purchase an annuity. Annuities are the only products that will guarantee you an income you can't outlive. It's those guarantees that are tied to Treasury rates. And as we know, those rates are at 40-year highs. If you're in or within 10 years of retirement, use this to your advantage. This is exactly why it's possible to receive up to a 25% upfront bonus for income, and why it is possible to receive up to 10% per year for income growth. It's because of the high interest rates. Don't let anyone tell you it's not true, but also don't wait. Interest rates and these guarantees will eventually come down. Call 801-899-7600. That's 801-899-7600. Or visit TrajanWealth.com.
Guarantees are based on the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company.
We've loved being partnered up with Be Ready Utah. Wade Matthews joins us right now from the Division of Emergency Management. And with Be Ready for flooding. Let's talk about flooding. Is there still flooding going on out there?
Yeah, we are actually transitioning from a flood response to a flood recovery right now while we still watch for flood risk from snowmelt. But there's always a risk for flash flooding. In fact, tomorrow and the next day in northern and central Utah, National Weather Service has said there's a threat of flash flooding. So whenever it rains, it can flood. But as far as the winter flood season, we're kind of winding down now.
Is it snowing up there right now?
It is snowing in the mountains again, 10,000 feet, yes.
Well, I mean, it is June 13th. Why wouldn't there be some snow still in the mountains?
Crazy.
Wade, thanks. Carl Hunt joins us right now from Forestry, Fire, and State Lands, Department of Natural Resources. Carl, what can we do to help prepare? Because we go from flooding, all this moisture, lots of stuff starts growing.
Yeah, there's a couple things that homeowners can do to prepare for wildfire season. The first is to create and maintain some defensible space. It's about 100 feet around your property. Create a evacuation communications plan, as well as prepare an emergency supply kit or evacuation bag in the event that happens.
So when you say a defensible space, 100 feet from the home?
Yeah, it's from the home, and there's different zones that you will want to manage the vegetation around there. So within 5 to 10 feet of your home, you don't want to have any vegetation or brush that could burn and catch your house on fire through the radiant heat or direct flame contact. And then as you get farther away from your home, you can bring trees in, other shrubbery, secondary buildings, so that if there is a fire that comes near your property, it's not going to have direct access to your home.
You don't want to put the kindling right up against the house. That's what you're saying. I'm hearing you say, don't stick the kindling right against your home.
Absolutely. And that's one thing that you'll see is people will put brush right around their home, and they like to cover that dryer vent, and sometimes that gives direct access into the home if that brush catches an ember, or they'll have the branches hang over their home. And so trim those trees back about 10 feet so those branches aren't hanging over your home.
Stop staring at me. Hey, it's beready.utah.gov is the website. Stick around, you guys, if you don't mind. Let's continue this conversation.
I switched to Boost Mobile and got a free Samsung Galaxy A23 5G phone. Want to know the best part?
It was free?
Nope.
The fact that it's on America's largest 5G networks?
Nope. It's the ding.
Oh, yeah. Love the ding.
Right? It's all about the ding. It's the dingarooski, the dingaroner, the ring-a-ding-ding.
Unleash your power to save with Boost. Get a free Samsung Galaxy A23 5G phone when you switch.
Boost Mobile. Unleash your power.
And the ding.
Limited time offer. New customers only. Available on select networks. 5G not available everywhere. One device per line. Tax excluded. Additional restrictions apply. See your local Boost Mobile store for details.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Palmas. First, would Utah be ready for a disastrous fire like the one that closed down I-95 in Pennsylvania? UDOT says they are. Second, a man was killed, 2 officers on paid leave now in Ogden after an officer-involved shooting incident this morning. And third, Republican leaders are voicing their support for former President Trump before his court appearance in Miami today. Right now, it's 66 degrees, mostly cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Dave and Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Eye on the Hill 2023. Special coverage with Dave and Dujanovic.
I want to assure you we still have our eyes right now on Miami, where we understand that the president is going to leave any moment now from Mar-a-Lago to the federal courthouse there for his arraignment on federal charges regarding classified documents that he's alleged to have kept against the law. There in his home in Mar-a-Lago. For now, we want to speak with President of the Senate, Stuart Adams, because there's important action happening on Utah's Capitol Hill as well this week.
Yeah, special session. Let's talk special session. Thank you for joining us, Senator. Give us an idea. I think we all know, but just remind everyone, what's the special session?
We have the opportunity of actually replacing a congressman in Utah. And I can't say it enough about Congressman Stewart, how he's represented Utah. And he's indicated he needs to resign, and he's resigning for family issues. And I have great respect for that. It's who he is. His family's number one in his life, and I can surely respect that he needs to resign. It happens at a difficult time. The difficult time comes about because we can't run, and we talked to our election officials, we can't run separate elections on top of each other. And we're in the middle of a municipal election cycle. So we either need to have to wait till November, and which is not an option to replace him, and go through that process, which would take probably another 6 months after that, or we'd have to set his election on top of the municipal election. So we're doing that. We're changing the municipal election dates, and that's a little bit of a challenge. It's something that, at least for the final election, the general election, we never done in Utah. So it should be for an interesting special election tomorrow. A special session, I mean.
So, yeah, special session about the special election tomorrow on Utah's Capitol Hill. Lawmakers will get together and take a vote on shifting Utah's elections around. And my understanding from our coverage here with our political reporter, Lindsay Aerts, is that the preferred date shift as of right now is to hold, is it September, like in Labor Day or something
September
like that?
5th. The day after Labor Day, September 5th. It's the primary.
For the primary, and then the general election would be held just before Thanksgiving?
November 21st. So we're moving back 2 weeks. So we shift the primary back actually 4 weeks, and we shift the general election back 2 weeks. And again, part of that is because the election officials need time to count signatures. Part of it is they need time to do the census or the canvassing after the election to make sure that they get the numbers right. And we have a process that we need to send those ballots out 45 days before the election to those in the armed forces overseas. So it becomes a little bit of a complicated system. But when we add it all together and we do our very best, we had to change the 2 dates.
President Adams, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the current law and the timing was put in place after Congressman Jason Chaffetz stepped down. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct.
Okay, so why was the timing off, or why do the dates and the current law? What was missed? What were you trying to do? What was the idea behind the current law, and why does it not work now?
Well, the reason is because he resigned at a different point in time in our election process, in a different year. So again, as they looked at it when he resigned, they felt like the solution they came up with fit the situation they existed in then. We are now in a different time frame, a different election cycle, and we have to change change it to fit the cycle we're in. So that's what we do here. Nothing is ever stagnant. It's always very dynamic and moving, and we deal with issues as they come forward because each time period creates new issues.
Senate President Adams, was there ever a discussion behind the scenes, let us be the fly on the wall, if you will, in these discussions about waiting and not calling a special session, not holding a special election, and leaving Chris Stewart's seat, Representative Stewart's seat, open?
Yeah, so can you imagine how complicated that would be? We've moved the filing date back to January. So you'd be running to replace Congressman Stewart for the rest of next year. Then you'd be filing to run for the new congressman running with an election in November. And you'd be running, those that wanted to replace him would have two elections going on at the same time. One might be a general election running against a Democrat or a minority member or a majority member to replace him for the end of the year, at the same time running a primary election for next June to be able to be the primary, the candidate for your party nominee. It would be so confusing. It would be, we talked about it, but it just doesn't work.
I was interested. That does sound like a disaster, by the way. I knew that the calendar was going to be a nightmare all along. So many things going on. But did you have any contact with Speaker McCarthy or the Republican National Committee? Did they pressure you, or did they have opinions about how quickly this should happen, since this does impact the House?
Not directly, but I heard people that want to have him replaced timely, and I think there is some political reason for that with a slim Republican majority in the House. But that really wasn't the driving factor. The driving factor is exactly what I just talked about, just physically and the process would have been a disaster to move it to next year. So maybe obviously that's something people will talk about, but that was not the driving factor. The driving factor was just it didn't fit our system.
Senate President Stuart Adams, thank you for joining us, and thanks for the update. Anything else on the docket that besides the special session in the special session?
Yeah, we have a lot going on. This is our interim session. Again, a lot of policy issues. You'll probably hear some of them. Again, I would just say it's great to be in Utah. We're doing so many great things. Best spot for business, best managed state. We're going to continue to make Utah the best state in the nation.
Can you make the rain go away for now, though? Because I want to get out and play.
Yeah, but
I know we need the water.
So...
I know. Don't tell the governor I said that. Don't tell the governor I said that. Senate President, good luck tomorrow during that special session, and let's have you check back in the days ahead. To continue to talk Utah politics with you. Appreciate your time today. I want to just continue to follow our developing story out of Miami. Let's dip into live coverage from CNN. Still awaiting the president's exit from Mar-a-Lago on the way to downtown Miami. But let's listen to CNN's coverage.
Depends on Trump. You know, we know that in the past his tactic is to delay, because the longer he can delay this, the closer you get to the general election, and he doesn't want a trial. The evidence here is quite, I think, strong and damning, and so he doesn't want this to go to trial. He wants to delay it.
In what way can he delay it?
So what Laura was saying, this will be adjourned for motions, and I think there are certain motions, and that's where the lawyers make arguments that they want certain things to happen. One in particular is the Classified Information Procedures Act. They call it CIPA, because these are all classified documents. There's going to have to be an assessment made with the intelligence agencies and a procedure put in place for federal court. How do you both maintain the defendant's right to a trial, a public trial with documents and evidence as well, and at the same time protect classified information? That could take time, for example. I'm sure he's going to want to relitigate what Beryl Howell did, the D.C. judge, when this was in a D.C. grand jury, former Chief Judge Beryl Howell made a ruling that his lawyer, Evan Corcoran, could pierce the attorney-client privilege.
And the notes of Evan Corcoran, which were taken contemporaneously,
that is happening right now on
so
CNN. Several analysts gathered around the anchor desk there at CNN headquarters while the news cameras monitor the exit of Mar-a-Lago. President expected to arrive in downtown Miami at the federal courthouse in about 30 minutes, Dave.
Yeah, and the thought was, and their opinion was, they want to delay. The tactic is to delay, to draw this out as long as possible. As we were talking to Greg Skordas, he felt the opposite. He thought that the Trump team would want to get this done as quickly as possible so that if there was an acquittal before the election in 2024, that would be a big win for the Trump team. CNN disagrees, but yeah, we continue to follow.
It's 11:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top local story this hour. A suspect who fled a traffic stop in Ogden early this morning was killed by an officer when they caught up with him a short time later in the 700 block of 8th Street. Jake Subi is Ogden's deputy police chief.
Upon the officer's arrival at 8th Street, the driver of the suspect vehicle got out and began to fire a weapon at two officers who had not been able to get out of their vehicles.
And one officer was able to get out of his car, fired his weapon at the suspect who died at the scene. That officer now on paid leave while the case is under investigation. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Police in the small upstate town of Lockport, New York, say they're looking into how a tour boat capsized in an underground cavern on Monday. One person died, several were hurt. ABC's Trevor Alt has more.
On board with the tour guide were 28 passengers, all local hospitality workers, the boat flipping upside down 300 feet into the cave. Emergency responders used an inflatable boat to rescue the passengers. The water temperature just 55 degrees, one rescue worker even suffering hypothermia. The response team even tearing a hole in the cave to get more people out.
And officials say this is the first time there's been an accident like this since the 1970s. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average moving up even further today, 204 points right now. And the NASDAQ also having an up day, up 112 points. And coming up, it looks like clouds this morning as opposed to sunny skies, and then possibility of a thunderstorm too. That's next. KSL News Time, 11:32.
This summer, the political season heats up.
By August, it'll be time for debates. Can you believe it?
We're planning coverage of the real issues, the important stories that impact how we live.
Listen each morning from 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Our state's children face a serious threat from the vaping industry. But thanks to state leaders and the Utah Health Department, Utah established the strictest nicotine standards for vaping in the United States to protect our kids. However, the vaping industry sued, claiming their sales and profits are down. Now they're pushing the health department to hand control of vaping regulations to the federal government. We can't allow that to happen. The proposed change would automatically increase nicotine levels in vape pens and reintroduce fruity flavors that entice our kids back into Utah convenience stores. Visit StopKidsVaping.com today and make your voice heard. Utah should maintain state control, preserve our 3% nicotine limitations, and prevent vaping flavors from returning to Utah convenience stores. Together, we can secure a better future for our children. Join us at StopKidsVaping.com and tell the health department, protect our kids.
Paid for by Prosperous Utah Communities.
Here at the David Dujanovic Show, we've been working with Be Ready Utah. BeReady.utah.gov is the website. Carl Hunt joins us right now from the Department of Natural Resources. And I want to talk about wildfires. Who's at risk?
Homeowners or landowners that are close to what we refer to as the wildland-urban interface are at a greater risk for experiencing the impacts of wildfire. And that wildland-urban interface is the lands that are pushing up against, our wild spaces. And so as we look at our bench communities, those are in that wildland urban interface area.
How far does that risk happen? Is there a safety spot, or is there a good rule of thumb?
Embers from a wildfire can travel up to 3 to 5 miles away from the fire. And so homeowners that feel like, I'm in the middle of town, I'm safe, aren't as safe as they think they are. And so they need to take those precautions that we kind of talked about in the last segment to prepare their home just in the event that there's a wildfire close to their community.
Which would probably explain that when you guys when there are evacuation orders, that it is a significant part of the community because of that very thing. You say it can really grow. Wade Matthews, what do you do if you get one of those evacuation orders?
You don't hesitate, first of all. You take it seriously. A lot of people want to mill and look and see what the neighbors are doing, but you have to act fast because you don't know how much time you're going to have. You grab your disaster supply kit, your medications, make sure everybody in the family is there and ready to go, and hop in the car and evacuate. You don't wait.
It's hard not to look at everybody else.
It
and
is.
Just to be your own person. Like, go ahead, mill around all you want. Me and my minivan, we're out of here.
Exactly.
Wade Matthews, thank you. Carl, stick around if you don't mind. BeReady.utah.gov is a great resource. I hit it all the time, whether it's wildfires, flooding, earthquakes. It is a comprehensive website. Great thing. So BeReady.utah.gov.
A must-see Utah Symphony performance of Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, in concert. The entire movie plays on the big screen while the Utah Symphony performs the score in sync with the film.
At KSL News Radio, we have a 30-year legacy of honoring Utah teachers, but we can't do it without your help. Please tell us about an important teacher in your life on the KSL Teacher Tribute Wall, presented by Cypress Credit Union. Each month, one lucky teacher wins a $500 gift card from Cypress Credit Union, a $250 gift card to Harmon's, plus season tickets to Hale Center Theater. Say thanks to your teacher today at kslnewsradio.com/teacher from Cypress Credit Union and KSL News Radio.
President Trump, the motorcade now heading from Mar-a-Lago to the federal courthouse in Miami. Police officers holding traffic, Miami traffic stacking up all over the place. And Dave, why don't you just give us a quick narration of what you're seeing there on your monitor?
Okay, it looks just like OJ. It's this empty freeway. It's only the motorcade driving, all the cop cars following. It reminds me exactly. Look at that. You look at one of the on-ramps backed up for blocks and blocks. People have been shut down. Nobody's getting on that freeway right now.
His initial appearance at 1 o'clock our time in Miami, we will, of course, be leaning on our coverage from our partners at ABC News. Right now, let's dip in live to CNN's live coverage. They have a helicopter viewpoint of the president as his motorcade as they head toward that federal courthouse in Miami.
Let alone when it's 8,000 degrees outside in Miami. But it shows you how deliberate January 6th was. It is very hard to move that many people. You need buses, you need organizers, you need command centers. What you saw with January 6th is not easy to replicate. You can see he's just as popular as he was. You're gonna have very few people there. It shows you that January 6th was a very, very deliberate, coordinated attack.
You've been listening to live coverage from CNN. That's Van Jones, CNN political commentator, kind of making somewhat of a comparison to January 6th. But I want to assure our listeners what we have seen outside the courthouse in terms of protesters at the Miami courthouse there, the federal courthouse, peaceful, exercising their First Amendment rights, some of them draped in a flag that says Trump 2024. But the chief of police said they were preparing from anywhere from 5,000 to 50,000 members of the public to show up either for or against President Trump, and that they were hopeful that things would remain calm. So far, that hope is panning out. But we're watching traffic stack up along the freeway there as officers hold the route for the president. And there he goes. They're watching. You can see people there in their parked cars or cars parked there on the freeway watching his motorcade roll by, Dave.
Yeah, I'm counting maybe a half dozen black SUVs getting the escort. I'm sure there's even more. But they're alone on the freeway. Wide open spaces, they're driving right along.
I want to cut over now to Fox News' coverage where Senator Marco Rubio is commentating for Fox News right now.
We can break our politics. We can take our institution and weaponize them for political purposes on both sides. You think this ends here? The next Republican president is going to be under tremendous pressure to bring charges and indict Joe Biden, his family, his crackhead son, whoever. The pressure is going to be extraordinary. They're going to turn us into, so we're decadent and we're in decline because we thought we could do anything we wanted with our economy. We could send our jobs and factories overseas, break our politics, break our culture, break our society. We don't need parents, we don't need neighborhood, we don't need family anymore. All these crazy ideas. And now reality's catching up, and it's hurting us badly. And today is, frankly, just a symptom of a much bigger problem, which we talk about here, and that is we no longer live in that world. We need to understand America's being challenged in a way it hasn't been challenged in 30 or 40 years, and we either respond or we are going to live in a world in which the most powerful and stable country in the world is going to be China, a communist dictatorship, not the United States.
Senator Rubio, I'm sure you saw it.
Yeah, and that was Florida Senator Marco Rubio, and he was touching on what Boyd Matheson was talking about, where we have this undermining of institutions, where we no longer trust what is going on, whether it's the court system, whether it's the police, the president, the lawmakers, everybody is working for themselves, and that undermining of trust, that's terrible. I mean, I think we can all agree that if we don't trust each other, if we don't trust the institutions that govern around us, that is a terrible way to move forward.
President Trump and his motorcade, Secret Service, moving him, quite frankly, rapid speed toward the federal courthouse in Miami. He'll make his initial appearance at 1 o'clock this afternoon. We know, and generally, those initial appearances, those arraignments in federal court are brief. The defendant will be arrested, essentially, and as all criminal defendants are in these matters, and go through the process with the U.S. Marshal Service, then appear before a federal judge. There will be no cameras allowed in the courtroom. There will be no cell phones allowed in the courtroom. And for context, that is very typical in federal court, much different than what you see. You compared the motorcade earlier to the O.J. Simpson matter, Dave. And in the O.J. Simpson matter in court, we saw cameras. That was in a state court. Federal court is far different than state court. The rules are different for the engagement of the public and the media as well. They do not allow recording devices in federal court. I've never known a federal court to allow a recording device in the years that I've covered federal trials.
We are voyeuristic, though. We have several news helicopters that are flying. We've got the Fox News helicopter. We've got CNN. Everyone's got the News Nation has their own. Everybody is flying over, tracking a motorcade. Again, as if this individual is fleeing from the police. We're just watching someone drive to a courthouse. This happens every day, all the time. People show up to the court. They get arraigned. But this has become a spectacle. And maybe it goes back to OJ. That was one of the first times that I can remember where it became a spectacle. And then all of a sudden after OJ, we went from the People's Court and Judge Wapner that everyone liked. Now we have like 50 shows where we're watching, quote unquote, justice take place.
Historically speaking, this is the first president ever to be charged with a federal crime. And after the indictment was handed up late last week by a federal grand jury in Florida, alleging that he had illegally kept many boxes full of classified records that did not belong to him, were in fact the property of the U.S. government, in places like a shower, in a bathroom, in a storage unit or a storage closet, out for display, actually in boxes, banker-type boxes on the stage there in the ballroom. The president, in not a surprising twist, took to the microphone and then blasted the special prosecutor, Jack Smith.
Jack Smith. What do you think his name used to be? I don't know. Does anybody ever? Jack Smith. Sounds so innocent. He's deranged. Deranged Jack Smith. And I watched him yesterday go up and talk. He talked for about 2.5 minutes. He was shaking. He was so scared. He didn't want to be there because ultimately these are cowards.
And now he's either got to face him in court or if there's going to be a plea deal, it's going to be with that, quote unquote, as he called him, deranged Jack Smith.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Did you know Utah has just one all-news station in the morning?
It's this one. Weekday mornings between 5 and 9.
Start your days with us. We're Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
Your morning companions for news.
Summer is here.
School's are out.
So if it's your turn to entertain the kids,
or you just need to get to work on time,
we have you covered.
Traffic and weather together every
10 minutes on the nines.
From KSL News Radio.
102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Or ask Alexa. Play KSL News Radio.
Part of our Be Ready Utah campaign has been to help educate you on what is going right now and what is in the near future. So we have talked a lot about floods in the past. Let's talk about wildfires, because with all this water, all this growth, there's no question that wildfires are going to be a concern here in Utah. So joining me right now from the Department of Natural Resources, Carl Hunt. Carl, what can I do to help prevent wildfires?
We all have a part to prevent wildfires, and through the Department of Natural Resources, we have our Fire Sense campaign to raise awareness of what the public can do. And it's simple steps: making sure your campfire is extinguished, maintain your vehicles, don't drag trailer chains, use fireworks responsibly. If you do agriculture and debris burning during the year, make sure you're doing it properly and according to the law.
I think about campfires because someone described it so well to me one time. They're like, put your hand in the coals. If you're comfortable putting your hand in the coals, then it is sufficiently extinguished. It kind of freaks me out, but that's how safe you have to be.
Absolutely, and that's exactly right. We always say douse your campfire with a bucket of water, stir it with a shovel, and then don't leave until you can put your hand on or in the coals.
Yeah, let's see. Put your money where your mouth is. Let's see if you'll stick your hand in there. Campfire is a big thing, especially in the summer. What do we do if there is a wildfire? How do we handle it?
If you see a wildfire,
small, little, big, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Call 911 immediately. The sooner we can get resources on scene, the sooner we can catch it and keep it small. And if you need information, you can go to utahfireinfo.gov, or you can go to Twitter at Utah Wildfire. And when there's starts within the state, we provide information there.
Carl Hunt, thank you. Thanks for joining me. Department of Natural Resources, again, utahfireinfo.gov.
This is Derek Miller speaking on business. Rise Culinary Institute is a nonprofit organization that promotes free culinary training and job placement to refugees in the state of Utah. Founder and owner of Saffron Valley Indian Restaurants, Biscott's Bakery and Cafes, and Rise Culinary Institute, Lavanya Mahate is here to share more.
Utah's greatest asset is our people and our workforce. Thanks to a number of donors and supporters, we were able to launch the Rise Kitchen in Sugar House, first of its kind in Utah to provide free culinary training and job placement for refugees. Rise helps people who have been forced to flee to restart their lives and build better futures. The first cohort of Rise starts this July. With 4 cohorts per year and 12 trainees per cohort, the program is designed to train and integrate 50 members from our refugee community into the restaurant and hospitality job market. We welcome passionate, talented, and creative individuals from our refugee community to apply for this free program. We also encourage people to volunteer, donate, and spread the word about Rise Culinary Institute. With your support, we can offer greater and more diverse opportunities for economic empowerment, culinary training, and community building through Rise Culinary Institute.
For more information, visit the Rise Culinary Institute website. I'm Derek Miller with the Salt Lake Chamber, speaking on business.
If your water heater's over 10 to 15 years old, congratulations. You've beat the average. What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and I love hearing stories of people having water heaters that are really old and they're still doing their job. Unfortunately, most of us won't be that lucky. And when water heaters fail, it's usually in spectacularly inconvenient fashion. Whether it's an unexpected cold shower when we're already running late for work, or worse yet, coming home to a flooded basement, it's never fun. If you'd like to look into replacing your water heater before it fails, Any Hour Services is having a sale for any homeowners listening. Whether you're looking for a new tanked water heater or you want to see what upgrading to a tankless would cost, the plumbers at Any Hour Services can show you what options are available. And right now, you can save $400 on a tanked water heater or $1,200 on a tankless. If you think you might be interested, call Any Hour Services today and schedule your free estimate. 801-443-7400. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
President Donald Trump, now on his way to his initial appearance and arraignment in federal court, left his home probably about 20, 25 minutes ago. Looking at the map, Dave, of that area from Mar-a-Lago to the courthouse, the federal courthouse, it appears to be an hour and 20-minute drive. So we could be sitting on this helicopter view of the streets of Miami for quite some time. But then again, I mean, my calculations could be off, and maybe perhaps he's arriving sooner than that. But do you see people just lining the streets there?
Yeah, in Miami, you can see as the motorcade is weaving through the streets, you have people holding signs in support. I don't see any protesters right now against the president.
Yeah, I think the drive was a lot faster than what this map had calculated, because CNN, let's dip into live coverage there. They're now reporting that the President of the United States, former President Trump, has arrived at the courthouse in Miami.
We've been talking about the barricades. There not being any of those metal barricades to keep people from running into the street. Well, that's exactly what happened here. People can run freely. All we have really are the officers who are standing around trying to keep people back. But now the former President Donald Trump is inside the federal building where he will be placed under arrest, Jake, where he will be taken in, processed, as we've been talking about, the fingerprinting, the other things that they do in the process. And so now we await for his appearance, Jake.
All right, Shimon Prokopez, thank you so much. And as we watch these images, let's chat with my panel here. And Dana Bash. I mean,
let's
should just
flip over right now to News Nation's coverage. They have a live shot fixated on the federal courthouse.
Be able to see that specifically, and then kind of walk you through the timeline about what exactly we're going to see inside of that courtroom there. The former president is going to surrender himself, go through the processing, and then he'll likely appear in front of that judge, and then he's expected to enter a not guilty plea. Of course, typically when you see arraignments in a federal court case, it's a pretty quick process, but the last time that we went through this over in Manhattan, when we were there just a couple of months ago, I just spoke with our producer, Kim Anderson, who actually was inside that courtroom. She said it took over an hour to go through everything, and the former president was actually in court for an hour up in New York. So take that as you will. You know, we don't necessarily know what the game plan is going to be from that end, but this is how this went the last go around. Then, once all of that wraps up here, the former president is going to be getting out of here and heading to New Jersey. We are expecting to hear from someone on his legal team outside of the courthouse after court wraps up today to give some kind of a statement. That's probably the only thing that we're going to get from the Trump folks until the former president gives remarks in New Jersey later this evening. So this is all fluid. This is all happening over the next few minutes, but we are starting to get closer and closer to having the former president inside that courtroom and going through the arraignment process, Natasha.
And so, Robert, you just said no statement expected in the actual courtroom from Mr. Trump, but that we are expecting a statement from his lawyers today. Is that right?
Well, of course, the former president would be inside court, so surely he's going to have to answer some questions to the judge. I'm going to give you an example. Last time, of course, he had to say, that he understood the charges that were against him. He had to say that he understood, talk about his legal counsel and accept legal counsel and things of that nature. So he will be saying things in court, but we're not expecting him to give the grand statement professing his innocence like he's been doing on Truth Social, at least until this evening. But a spokesperson from the Trump team is supposed to come out and address the media afterwards. That's the game plan. Of course, this is all subject to change, but that's the latest guidance we've been given.
Yeah, and speaking of his legal team, I mean, there has been some turmoil and shakeup recently. What can you tell us about that?
Right. So, of course, a couple of days ago, there was one set of attorneys who was representing him, who we were all hearing from and who we all expected would be leading the charge in this case. But both of them have been replaced. And now the two attorneys who are set to be inside that courtroom are expected to be Todd Blanche and Chris Keiss. Those are the new legal counsel who have been brought in by the former president in this case. It's worth noting that Chris Keiss, as well, is actually pretty well-known legal commodity here in the state of Florida, has been pretty close with several key Republican players in the state, such as Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and former Florida Governor Rick Scott, now U.S. Senator Rick Scott. So he's been around the state of Florida working with a number of Republicans on legal cases and in their realm for some time now. Todd Blanche as well, also with representation there. And then we have heard that Jack Smith, special counsel, did arrive in Miami last night. He's the one whose office has been leading the charges against the former president here. It is our understanding that he's going to be at this courthouse today, as he is in Miami at this hour.
Appreciate that. And, you know, Robert, as you mentioned, Trump is expected to speak tonight after he leaves Florida. What can you tell us about that? And I know that you were closely monitoring his remarks just this past weekend when he was visiting a couple of states. That was the first time that we heard him publicly address this issue after the
President Trump staying last night much closer than Mar-a-Lago to the federal court, staying at his resort just outside of Miami, and then making it to the federal courthouse just moments ago with his motorcade. Now, according to News Nation's coverage, Robert Sherman, who joined us in the 10 o'clock hour, again, you just heard him there outside the courthouse talking about the president being inside that federal courthouse, and he will be processed by the U.S. Marshals Service as any criminal defendant would be.
37 total counts, 31 counts of willful retention of national defense information. But we'll turn things over to ABC News, who was covering this.
Allegedly violating the Espionage Act. He is the first former president to ever be indicted by a federal grand jury, first to be indicted twice. This is about those top secret documents found stashed at Mar-a-Lago, allegedly showing them off as a prize, storing highly sensitive documents, and then trying to allegedly cover up that he had them. He's expected to walk into court in a short time and plead not guilty. He'll be arrested by the FBI and booked like any criminal defendant. Americans have very differing views on these charges and on what's going on today. On one side of America, he is an alleged criminal who deserves anything thrown at him. On the other side of America, this is all politics. The federal government being weaponized by the Biden administration and a witch hunt, and many other Americans fall somewhere in between all of that. President Trump's motorcade making the arrival into the courthouse. On the ground outside of the courthouse right now is ABC's Rena Roy. Rena, tell me what it's like there right now.
Well, Alex, tensions are certainly high out here. Right next to us, in fact, just steps away, there is a growing group of protesters. We are right outside the courthouse, right by the entrance to the courthouse where President Trump will be arraigned this afternoon. And these protesters have really been out here since the morning. You actually might be able to hear some of the chaos surrounding us right now. They've been chanting, even getting into some heated moments with each other. And police have been allowing them to be in the same area as the media. So there really is no barrier between us. And there have been both supporters and opponents of Trump all intermingling here with us, the reporters and the cameras. Some people are here selling Trump 2024 hats and T-shirts, and others, they have signs that say lock him up, so it really runs the gamut. But it is important to note that among the crowds there is very much heightened security. There are a lot of officers postured and ready to go from the local and federal level, including the Department of Homeland Security. We've seen officers from that agency really patrolling this area, making sure things are okay. They say that they're ready for whatever could potentially happen. There are no credible threats of violence at this hour, though, officials say, but many of them, just in case, they are wearing bulletproof vests and riot gear. And I would say there's about several hundred people out here right now, but authorities are anticipating anywhere from 5,000 to 50,000 people to show up throughout the day. And earlier this morning, there actually was a bit of a situation out here. Police cordoned off a whole block in front of the courthouse to investigate a suspicious item. They closed off that area for about 30 minutes. They were looking at an item, and that was a television with an anti-media message written on it in white paint. So they put a portable X-ray device in front of it. They examined it. They pushed us all back from our gear in front of the courthouse here. They gave us the all clear about 30 minutes later. And since then, things have been pretty calm. Again, though, both sides of the aisle kind of, arguing with each other a little bit here and there and making their opinions known. But again, authorities say right now, no credible threat of violence.
Between people selling things and then those who are holding up anti-Trump signs as well, sounds like much of the crowd that follows him to rallies that he holds. But this is the polar opposite of what he's about to go through inside the courtroom. Rena, how have you seen security ramping up through the day? From early this morning when it seemed like there wasn't a lot, are you seeing it rapidly ramp up right now?
Yeah, we are, in fact. Over the last several hours, there's been quite a shift. As you said earlier this morning, it was pretty quiet out here. There weren't many protesters around this area. It was just pretty calm. We did see some officers.
KSL FM Midvale, KSL Salt Lake City.
It's 12 o'clock at KSL News Radio. Good afternoon. I'm Dan Bomas. This is Utah's Noon News. Dan Bomas sitting in for Maria Chaleos. And KSL's top story this hour. Security tight at the courthouse in Miami, where former President Trump is on his way for an arraignment. He's the first former president to face federal charges in U.S. history. Mr. Trump not expected to be handcuffed, but his mugshot will be taken. Again, security tight, as you've been hearing, and the former president expected to be booked for multiple charges related to his handling of classified information. Some Republican lawmakers have been coming to the former president's defense.
There's no violent solution to this problem. We have a legal system. He'll be represented. There will be appeals. This will go all the way to the Supreme Court. There's a belief on the Republican side that the law doesn't apply equally to Republicans and Democrats, but that's no reason to engage in violent activity.
That's South Carolina Republican Senator Lindsey Graham saying he doesn't believe that there was any malice in Trump's keeping hundreds of boxes of classified records. We have a developing story right now, and it was a week ago that two officer-involved shootings occurred in Ogden. At least within the past week, we've had two of them. KSL News Radio's Adam Small has more on that.
Police say the initial call came in just before 1:30, saying someone had a gun. Ogden Deputy Police Chief Jake Suby says what followed was a suspect fleeing in a stolen vehicle, and when they finally stopped,
the driver of the suspect vehicle got out and began to fire a weapon at two officers who had not been able to get out of their vehicles.
Suby says one officer managed to get out of the car and return fire, killing the suspect on scene. This comes only 1 week after an officer was injured in a shooting at an apartment complex near the Ogden-Weber Technical College.
These incidents have an undeniable impact on both the officers and the community. We are aware of the emotional toll that they can take.
8 officers from last week and 1 from this morning are now on leave. Adam Small, KSL News Radio.
Nationwide inflation has been slowing down considerably, rising only 0.1 of a percentage point in May, but it's still up in the air if that will impact the possibility of a recession. ABC business correspondent Alexis Christoforous begins our team coverage.
One big caveat for the Fed is all the banking turmoil, those 3 bank failures we had in the spring. A lot of banks are now tightening their lending standards, which means that businesses and consumers, they're finding it harder to get loans. That in and of itself is going to bring the economy down. If the Fed continues to raise interest rates coupled with that,